This is Kenya's the number one opera in the world, according to Thorin. You're watching Thorin channel, that are also known as the number one existence fan in the world.
Right, this is going to be another episode of Snake and Banter, the show with me and Mauisnake. And of course, we are joined by Davey there. Of course, people who aren't very fluent or just intelligent native speakers might have stupidly said Mauisnake and I, but that wouldn't even make sense, would it, in this particular context? So, obviously, Davey was a long time ago a professional player. If people don't know, actually, I've brought this up once on By the Numbers jokingly, but it's actually a detail people genuinely don't know, because since obviously the one like big tier one moment in Davey's career was when he got to play at the major with Splyce, people don't know he was literally one of the people who, in reality, if you know the context of the infamous tweet, I was actually implying were monkeys, except obviously I said a bunch of different people to subvert the joke, and in doing so, not only, some would say, brought the wrath of a South American country on myself for the rest of my life, but actually even worse, but the one part I do truly genuinely regret is dragged Smix into it, because actually my joke sort of made it look like she'd said that, whereas actually she was just basically implying Davey's a monkey because he screamed every time him and his teammates got one kill in a major. But to be fair, it was the only time they were at a major, so I sort of get that one, believe it or not, you know.
And to be fair, Abe was the one who was doing the
Oh, it was him.
The screaming, yeah. But that's okay. Like, it's fine. Honestly, I don't mind. It's so long ago now. People don't even know. There's people who didn't even start playing or watching Counter-Strike until like 2018.
Yes.
And they just still have no clue. Like it's fine, honestly.
No, I always tell people it's actually genuinely a principle I use in my content. Right? I found this out years and years ago when I got into League of Legends, and I noticed similarly, like when you have a huge game, the turnover is way crazier than like the old school. Like if you followed old school Counter-Strike, you might have followed it for 10 years or something. In modern games, I always just roughly think if anything's basically over 2 years ago, just refresh the viewer. Like a lot of them actually, you'll be amazed, won't watch it. It's like the turnover of new people is more than people realise, because obviously you have people who leave, and obviously in the more recent times, Davey does some commentary and all that jazz. But the online era means who the fuck knows where any of that stuff is, because we don't have the old LAN circuit back. Right, let's get into this. So, Davey, we obviously always have the guest start with his. So, what is your good point? What did you pick as the good point you want to bring?
I brought my good point as Kenny S, and I'm going to explain why.
Okay.
Because obviously Kenny, historically, again, for those of you who may not know, as we were just talking about, there was a point in time where Kenny S was the best opera in the world, like 2014, 2015 time, and then as the years went on, he was still a top tier 1 opera for a long time. Over the past few years, not so much. Lots of reasons for that. As Thorin's talked about before on many shows, he sort of has ups and downs with his motivation, right? For this, for that. He's sort of all over the place. But this event where he came back to play with G2, so I was sort of on the fence. I was like, I wasn't really sure, how he was going to do when he came back, what was going to happen. And so far at the event, he's the only player on the team that's negative. He's -4 with a 0.96 rating. But when I look at that, not only is the team winning the games, but he's coming in as somebody who throughout his entire career has had teams built around him to play a certain way because of how good and how skillful he was. And now he's playing plug and play in this G2 team. And, like I said, stats-wise, he's not killing it, but he's not doing terribly at all. He's played super average just as an individual. And I think that when you look at also when you watch the game, he's passing the eye test a lot, but also just looking at the stats alone, for flash assists, he's number 1 on the team, and for opening kills, okay, you're never going to be better than Nico in opening kills, but he's number 2 in the team in opening kills with 17.3% attempts and a 60% success rate. 60% success rate's fucking huge.
Oh, it's okay.
And Nico, obviously you can't beat Nico. He's got like a 33% attempt rate because he just goes for every single opening duel ever. And I think hypothetically, I know G2 apparently is signing Monazi, that there's been reports come out that that's a done deal now, whatever. But I think if G2 had kept Kenny, that would have taken a lot of pressure off of Nico for going for that many opening kills, so his success rate could go higher. Because he goes for so many, his success rate's only like 52%. But I think if you have Kenny, who's also very aggressive and likes to go for those, that takes a lot of pressure off of him. And I think that any team now that Kenny joins, it is going to take a lot of pressure off of the riflers going for those opening kills. And I think Kenny, throughout his entire career, that's always been his most successful trait, is being able to find those openings around the map. Late rounds, he's not as strong, but I think in those early rounds has always been Kenny's strength. And so I think that now going forward, if he does decide to dedicate a bunch of time to the game and he finds a team that really suits him, I think he can easily come back to a top tier team.
What do you think, Maui?
He had one really good clutch against Kerrigan on Cobble. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah, I remember that one. Yeah, no, that was. Yeah,
Listen,
that was,
back in the day, he actually was a
one of
mega
those
clutch
ones
player,
that
by
was
the way.
perfectly played. Yeah, and like Kerrigan hit every single shot too, and then Kenny S just like a quick scope.
He just means now. He just means not as clutch at the moment when he's come back for his temporary G2 standing, obviously for these two events.
Yeah.
Duncan doesn't remember what round we're talking about. You got to tell him, like.
Yeah, this is the. I was referring to the one where Kenny S was on Cobble planting the bomb, and Kerrigan pulled out his USP and whiffed something like 8 USP shots while running it at Kenny S.
12.
Like,
he just W'd at him and whiffed all of his USP shots. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and then Kenny won the 1v2 because of it. Yeah.
And then Kenny spun around, no scoped him, and then killed the second guy. And it was. Yeah. And it's the famous clip where Kerrigan's there like this with his hands in his face, and Zipmix just has his headphones off, looking at the camera like. That was brutal.
Yeah. I actually watched a handful of Kenny's demos at this because I was thinking of making a YouTube video, but then the turnover was too high and I flew out anyways. So I'll say this about Kenny. I think that what I saw in those demos can only get better, because one of the reasons he was dying was kind of like just not knowing when he should throw nades for teammates. He had a really good flash stats, like you showed, or like you said, but sometimes it was almost as if he should have just had his gun out even more. And if you just have to reprogram Kenny to have his gun out more, I mean, that's something he can do all day. You know, he's actually hitting a lot of the shots. He's taking a good amount of the duels that he should. And I'd say at the end of his tenure with G2 the last time before he got benched, a problem that we all noticed at Blast games was just the fact that he was just kind of whiffing. He was just missing shots. Yep. And I'm not seeing that as much at this tournament. He's hitting more of them. I'd say a higher percentage. Nobody hits 100% of the shots, despite what ZywOo may make you think. But everybody can get behind the fact that Kenny is actually doing a serviceable job here, and that's something that paves the way for him to, like you said, Davey, get on a new team. I want to throw in one other thing I love about this is that I'm getting to see Mauisnake rifle again, because Mauisnake is busting out as a really strong player. And for a while, when people were thinking about who should be removed or leave G2 so that they can improve, I think the debate was more or less centered around Jax and Mauisnake. And I think Mauisnake has surely shown me at this point that if you just put him on the rifles, he can do everything you need him to do. And he's just probably better in mid-late rounds than he was with the op.
And also, I mean, small side note, I think Kenny being there, like you said, first of all, he's playing off role. Like, he still is opping, but there's different types of oppers, right? I'm not going to get into the details of that, but he's playing off role in a brand new meta that he hasn't competed in a long time. So the meta's changed drastically since the last time Kenny was playing. And also because Kenny was there doing all these, like you said, he was like over supporting, because he's like, I'm the stand-in, I'm the one to make this team win. Like, so he's over supporting, and that actually unlocked Jax. Jax is having one of the best events he's had in a while, which is kind of funny, because Jax is a very weird player to me. Like, I can never tell if he's really good or really bad. Like, it's actually kind of tough. So yeah, I think Kenny being there's also unlocked Jax, which has been interesting.
Sure. I mean, I would obviously say, yeah, this has to be a good in the sense of just, it's even implied in the interviews he's doing, because obviously, as you say, Davey, it looks like the Monacy deal's going to happen, therefore he's going to come and he's going to be the AWPer. But it looks like it is implied, if there is a team out there, that Kenny S is going to keep playing and he's going to try to actually become a proper pro again, which ties into, even though from an objective outside position, I do think one day G2 might look back, especially if Kenny ever gets good again, and go, why didn't we make it work, or we had Kenny S and Nico in the same team? Like, what the fuck? Get in here, whoever made that decision. But at the same time, I can't blame them for it, because that was the period where he himself essentially agreed, like, I should be benched because I just don't have any motivation, I don't care about the game. And his reason why, actually, he's probably one of the most honest and fair of all the pro players. Unlike all those cocksuckers in Mouse Sports and Fnatic who just lied to everyone's face, like, oh, it's just because it's not LAN. Like, if LAN came back next month, that'd be good. It's like, by the way, you've seen when, like, the major and stuff rolled around, some of those players weren't that good now because it's so many years later. Like, some of them, I think they just got to have an excuse for like a year or something before they got fired. Kenny S basically just straight up privately admitted, and eventually publicly, like, I just can't get into it unless there actually is like a big playoffs in the future of the event I'm at, and there could be a crowd there. Basically, he's like the casters. If people don't know, you know that whole stupid debate that happened on Reddit during the like major hiring process, where people were like, why are they hiring guys who have barely worked in 2 years? Because those are people who don't get out of the bed just to do a fucking online tournament, mate. The thing that they live for is to be in the arena with the 10,000 people. Like, as much as everyone loves to say, like, random caster X is better than Semler, not in a fucking stadium they aren't, because Assembler has 1 million reps in a stadium, so he can get the crowd, like, he can play with them, like, he just knows exactly when to fire this part up and that part, or when not to say something that fucking will go through a mic and ruin the whole round. Like, you have to understand there's levels to this shit, but at the same time, like, I get it. If you can't do the job on a basic level, you have to be replaced. So I actually think the way they replaced him, if you look back, it was fair, and I think actually it wouldn't have been right, frankly, for them to bring him back. Like, he looked like he straight up was checked out. He just said, like, I don't care about Counter-Strike, basically. That's why he even intimated, maybe I just go to Valorant. Spoiler, by the way, people in Valorant, that's a really bad sign, you morons. If your game was so amazing, there'd be no room at the inn, would they, for someone who's not playing Counter-Strike or any game and says, I'm fucking burned out. The fact you all just, like, go, sign this contract and you will play for 10 years in team. Like, yeah, exactly, enough about your game. So what I would say is this, people have heard my rant before, but I'll do a brief version of it. It goes like this. There are other players in Counter-Strike where they are affected by Father Time, and I don't know why they get worse. They just do. It's inexplicable. No one really knows why. Like, one of the craziest I ever saw was the old school Danish AWPer Nico with a C, the one who used to play with Glaive and Pimp and those guys. He genuinely went from an amazing AWPer to just, like, I'm not joking, one of the worst tier 1 AWPers. And it wasn't that he was, like, not trying at all, but, like, I even know he put in some effort and it just didn't affect him at all. Somehow he just lost whatever it is and he was just never that good in the game. Kenny S is one of the few players I've met ever. I don't even put ochs in this category anymore, where it is purely down to how much he cares about the game, which is how much he practices. And if he does the practice, I'm not even exaggerating, people don't realise, because we never put him in this category, Kenny S is a prodigy at Counter-Strike. Like, he basically is like a Ziwu simple motherfucker. People don't get it because they don't know how young he was and, like, at the beginning of CSGO. Go back and look, guys. It's mental how young he is at the beginning of the year. I think right now, I'd have to look it up, but I think right now, isn't he like 26 or something, 27 or something, man?
Yeah, I know he's real close to me. And
he's 26 years old right now, and we're talking as though, he's like 32, like Forrest or something. So basically, what that means, guys, is in the past, because obviously he would have like, he would almost do like year in, year out. Like 1 year, I'm just like, like the 10th best AWPer. Next year, I'm like the 2nd best. He would just go like that. Basically, it was all, no joke, almost entirely based around how competitive his team was, and therefore how much he was playing the game, and he was motivated. In some sense, he is like the AWPing Forest in that way. He could be amazing or he could just be average. So I'll just say this, like, I can't know it because there's been plenty of players that do just not like that good or don't come back from breaks from the game. But if I had to pick anyone who could come back, this guy would be it. And I'll even throw in as well, the good part about the AWP is, right, look, as much as we all want to talk about beautiful AWP play, like some of the things that like Device was doing, etc., with mobile AWPing and Simple does on Nuke, etc., at the end of the day, the AWP is the most brain-dead gun in the game. It is literally a binary. Can you shoot the guy almost anywhere in his body just once, therefore you get the kill, and if you miss, you don't, and you probably die, right? The best thing about that is, it's just, do you have the mechanics still? If you have the mechanics still, look, the rest of it, like what Maui was talking about, is how you fit into a team and how you work at tier 1. But at the end of the day, you got to hit that threshold. Do you have the raw mechanics to be good enough to be a tier 1 AWPer? And one of the things I hate about this whole discussion when we're trying to talk about players like Kenny and the rest of the scene is most of the teams need the AWPer, you'll notice in the discussion. Like when you look in the top 10, whenever you're trying to make a team better with one roster move, the problem is everyone knows all the best teams have the great AWPers at the moment, minus G2, ironically, and everyone else is like either scrambling for an AWPer that doesn't exist, like Astralis, or they're all hoping they can get the next up-and-coming AWPer, by the way, like G2's doing in Monacy. So in my opinion, if he gets his mechanics back up by raw practice, and he looks like he is dedicated, so he will learn the game things you guys are talking about, how we currently play in the meta, it's just one of the most almost surefire players that could at least be tier 1. I'm not saying necessarily be the best, who the fuck knows, that's on him, isn't it? But the idea he can't be like in a pro team does my head in,
Yeah, he can never be the best again, because unfortunately, like, Simple exists, so you're never gonna be the best AWPer again, but he could easily be a top 5 AWPer again, I think. And to any tier 1 team, I think that's obviously super valuable, as you were just alluding to, because every single tier 1 team, you have to have it, because like you were saying, the AWP, it just kills in one shot. So like if you have somebody who's really good with it, you just win more rounds. It's just like how it works. It is just a crutch weapon. Like you just, all you have to do is hit them once and they die. So
it's also, as well, I will say, it's also the role where you need to have your LAN experience fucking nailed to the ground. Like, that's the guy you can guarantee is going to choke is the AWPer that's never been in a bit. That's why I knew Shiro wasn't making it through the whole fucking major, mate. You're not going to play his style, which is like in theory the most controlled style ever, when you've got all that nerves and pressure and there really is like a sweat bead on your head and then everyone's shooting you in the face every single time you peek. You're just going to go into a ball like he did and just fucking lose the game. So I will say that if you notice when these teams go through their shortlist, like who could they get as an AWPer? Because Device, bizarrely, for some reason I'll still never really understand, minus that girl lived in Sweden, because he just never actually tried the free market market. By the way, he would literally have been the most crazy bidding war in the history of Counter-Strike. A guy who speaks perfect fluent English, has won all the majors, and can fit in almost any team, plug and play probably is not. Like, I still can't even comprehend why that wasn't a thing. But let's put that one to one side. If you look at the list of names people have, dude, you start asking people top 10 pro AWPers, you should see how quickly they have to get to names like Mantu. Mate, if you're going to Mantu, like, in your top, like, then I can tell you immediately Kenny S gets another chance. Because here's the difference. Mantu's got years of reps to go before we know he's going to be a great LAN AWPer in a big game in a semi-final in a stadium. I can tell you tomorrow, if Kenny S is good enough, he's going to translate to that environment. So, yeah, anyway, you get my point. I think it's just an obvious good if he comes back. It's also, by the way, let's throw this in as well. A lot of fans don't realise this. There's a certain golden era of CSGO players that Kenny was in from the beginning. That even though, to tie into the discussion earlier, there are loads of fans that never watched these people play, that almost helps, believe it or not, Davey. If you are names like Kenny S, Scream, Pasha, fucking go down the list, Forest, you know those names, those particular names from that era, dude, they live forever. Like, I'm not joking. If Scream actually came back today as a CSGO player, he'd be one of the most popular players, I guarantee you. Because there's a bazillion people who've just heard the name. There's a million people who'd be like Indian and Chinese fans and stuff. So again, you also need those names in your game. Like, as brilliant as, by the way, maybe Monacy ends up having a better career than Kenny S. The problem is, you can't replace them name for name. It's going to take him years to build that rep up and to be this massive marquee figure. I always thought the most whack part of CSGO tournaments is we have these enormous matchups and we don't even fucking put the star versus stars like a central theme of it. Like, I'd have whole posters designed. It's mental to me. So anyway, you need names like that in the game. Right, we'll go on then. So we'll go to the bad category now. So Davey,
no, we still got goods. We still got goods to go through.
That can't be true. Oh, I realise now. Yes, you're right. Actually, that was only the first point. Fuck, holy shit. Yeah, actually, you actually convinced me that was my point there. Holy moly. Yeah, you're right. Mauisnake, what is your good point?
Yeah, my good.
Why did I think that was my point there?
My good was so good that Duncan co-opted it. He was like, man, this is such a good point, man. Okay. I want it too.
Yes.
Mine is that I think Virtus Pro looks stellar with Flit. I am so aboard the Flit train at this point, and I think that the timing of that move, at this point, I'm okay with it. I think a lot of people were kind of questioning the fact that right before the major, are you really going to take out Sanji? But truthfully speaking, I don't know if they really get that much farther with Sanji anyways, losing to Heroic in the first round in the quarterfinals. So why not just get that kind of experience anyways? It's still probably the finish they were going to have. So best result there that they could have had. And then they just had more experience playing with Flit, who has shown to be a stellar third star to this roster. Because I'll say Buster and Kickert have kind of not really hit the heights that they had maybe in the 2019 major, where they were just entry fragging everybody and winning these random rounds. But Iskander and James were clearly the stars of this roster. Flit is now a third star. He is the highest rated CT side player at all of IEM Winter on any single team. And when you watch games with him on even the T side, he's trying to entry frag as much as Iskander is. And so there's a second person that Iskander can now pump the brakes a little bit, show a little bit more dynamism in his type of play. And so we're seeing another side of Iskander. We're seeing VP go through this group stage without losing a map to anybody, even Gambit, who was always their kryptonite, who was briefly their kryptonite. Like, this is the VP that I have wanted to see for a while. And I know there's a lot of Sanji apologists out there, but he frankly just wasn't strong enough as an individual player. I mean, I don't know how many Sanji games I had to see to know that if he doesn't hit his first bullet headshot, he's going to whiff the spray. It just always happened over and over again. He even whiffed people that were sometimes not looking at him. If he just whiffs the first shot, tries to pull down the spray, and I think because he uses maybe a final mouse or something, that shit is just way too light, and his hands just moving all over the mouse pad, just skating across. And literally, Flit is just such a great rifler. Like, I really think Flit is probably one of, if not the best Mirage rifler in the world. I think Nico probably is the only one better than him. Config, Flit, and Nico are probably my three best Mirage riflers outright. And I just think that right now, VP are looking like one of the deadliest teams now because this roster is only getting better.
By the way, just because I obviously have to put this disclaimer in here, it goes without saying Mauisnake doesn't include Simple in that equation because he's talking about, again, normal players and which maps they're going to... Again, Simple's the best at everything. We all know that. It's even mathematically recently proven, wasn't it, where he had like the best rating on every map and RV players or whatever. Yeah, just so that people don't go mad. He obviously means stylistically.
Oh, I mean, like, basically not an opper. A rifler. Riflers, Nico, Config, and give me Flit. honestly.
Like, we all know if Simple decided to become a rifler,
Yes,
he would then
yes.
be the
Yes,
number
exactly.
one, but he's not
Yeah.
right now, so we're not including that.
Yes.
But no, I think for mainly the Sanji apologists are like the people who are like, oh man, how could you cut Sanji? He was so essential to the team. They were doing all these things. I think those are the people who are like the worst players in their friend group, and they're like really like associating themselves directly. Like they've developed this parasocial relationship with Sanji. Like, I can make it one day too. It's like, no, you can't. But like, good, keep trying though. It's great. I think those are the people who are like really against the Sanji removal. I think that's where they sort of fall into place. As far as Buster goes, and I know you brought him up, and obviously Flit's great. And I think my problem with Buster on the last lineup when they had Sanji is for whatever reason in 2020 he adopted this completely new play style, like completely different to how he was playing before. He stopped going for entries on CT sides. He was never going for opening kills. He was the guy who was the very much the sit all the way back and like anchor lockdown spots, and that was a completely different stylistic thing for him. He had never played like that before, and he's still playing like that now. And I don't know I don't know if that was a coaching change. I don't know if that was him trying to reinvent himself. I don't know, because when I remember in 2019 I was saying Buster should go to Na'Vi because they need another aggressive rifler, and then now he's the least aggressive rifler on VP. It's like the weirdest thing ever. But I think now that Flit's there, that actually complements Buster more. He's not putting up great numbers, but now they have, like you said, they have that other aspect of their game now where Flit is going for the aggressive fights, so there's no extra pressure on Kickert and Buster to try to do that anymore. So I think that is like been the main thing that has really changed it, where even just having Flit, don't get me wrong, it also helps that he's really good, but just the fact they have somebody actually going and putting that pressure on the map, because right now, especially in the current meta, it's all about applying pressure on extremities at the same time. Pressure here, and now you have Flit and Yakindar. You can really do that a lot more, and so I think that that's unlocked Buster a little bit more as well. And I think that obviously Jame is kind of hit or miss, unfortunately. Like, no pun intended. It's just you just like don't know which Jame is going to show up for any given event. And so I think having Flit now also gives everybody a little bit more freedom. And I think that Flit is like really good. And I'm kind of surprised it's been this long. It's taken this long for somebody to start yoinking those players from that Forza lineup. Like, because they've got some gamers over there. And now finally, Flit's made a move to one of the bigger orgs in the region with VP. I'm assuming it's buyouts and shit. That's prevented it. But now that Flit's actually made the move over to VP, you can see that it's made the whole team better. And I agree with you. I don't think they're going to be. Honestly, I don't think they're going to win an event really anytime soon. Not a big tier one. I mean, maybe they're going to win IEM like tomorrow or 2 days from now, and I'm going to look like an idiot. But I don't think they're going to be winning any big event like right now. But they're definitely going to be contenders in a lot of the events going forward.
The funny thing is, I don't know if you remember this, but I think it was before they got Perfecto, actually, the rumor was that Flit was going to go to Na'Vi, if people don't remember, a couple of years ago. So the joke is, it feels like actually it was just Destiny. Na'Vi either way was just going to get rammed with talent and probably win all these fucking majors. Like, it's because they didn't get Flit, they just got someone else with a 1 and a T in his name and then just fucking took him instead. It's like, oh, whatever, the wrong guy, who gives a fuck? Right, here's the thing, I won't spend much time on the Sanji part, because as you said, Dave, I think you nailed it, mate. I find it pathetic. Like, there has to, unless it's like people are just a fan of him in person, which is different, it has to be some angle like you're saying. Like, they've just tied it to some weird insecurity themselves. It's like in League of Legends. If you ever follow the pro game of League of Legends, it is so fucked up how many people want to like kick any pro player who shows any mild toxicity, because they're doing the same thing. They're just like, oh, I hate when people are toxic in my games. And it's like, so we're going to literally decide the entire pro scene based on how your fucking pastime goes. Like, maybe just get out your own head and watch the game, mate. So all I'll say for the Sanji anglers, I always used to think this, right? It's very convenient that the exact ways that people choose to compliment people, because it tells you everything about how they actually see them. So how did all the Sanji fans big up Sanji? They'd go, he has an amazing headshot ability. It's like, right, well, brilliant. If you have amazing headshot ability and then everything else is tier 1, you would be one of the best players in the whole world, you moron. All he had was headshots. Like, as Mauisnake says, if he didn't just instantly kill you, by the way, it's why he was a mega pistol round player, obviously. If he didn't just instantly dink you, he was just going to get killed, wasn't he? Also, anyone who's played in any pro team knows following what I say is true. Unless you chose to do it yourself, and I'm not talking about like you had to, so you chose it, it's mutual. If you are told by your team to drop guns for other people, you are not in any way a good player in that team. In fact, they are essentially telling you it doesn't even matter if you have a gun, it's more important you. That's like some shit where like Kobe Bryant shoots over 2 players with a hand in his face rather than pass to you when you're open. Take a hint. He doesn't think you're fucking good, mate. He thinks him him playing a worse shot is better than you having the best shot. You know, again, maybe just understand your time is limited on this roster. So what I'll say is this. I thought it was fine when they did the move, because another thing people are forgetting, Mauisnake, is this wasn't right after IEM Katowice. VP's results were in the toilet. They were just like an average team. Like, you'd watch the games, they were in every match, but they weren't winning the matches. So actually, to make the move then, yes, obviously, in theory, the old lineup might have been better. I don't think the old lineup goes further than round of 8 of the major. They almost won that match as well, people forget. So, like, they could have been in the semis of the major, for fuck's sake. Then you look at some of the teams that were even going ahead to, like, no way. I think that team already overperformed with Flit. I will agree, if they'd have been smart and they'd gone on the Flit side, you could say it's not going to be at your peak form yet. Yeah, that's obvious. Like, you could say at that tournament, the team looked like their map pool shrunk immediately, and that they had to basically force certain map picks. And then some of the rounds they won on maps like Ancient, I think, were just miracles. I don't think they even won by knowing those maps or being good on them. But that in itself, by the way, you dumbass Sanji fans, is why the move was great. Because even on maps they clearly didn't play, didn't have the routine for, and were being punish picked against, they were winning by shooting people with the guns. You know, the thing that Flit does and your boy Sanji doesn't do. Like, your logic is like, they can dance really well. Yeah, whatever, mate. So I think it's a great move. I think, bearing in mind the CIS region seems like a nightmare to move pieces around, and this is one of the few pieces you could move. Great pickup. As Mauisnake says, he even fits right in the team. It's not like they were going to make the whole team around him. They already had their 2 stars, and they're set in stone, Iskander and Jim. But this guy slots right in as just a rifler, but a good one. And then you see the rest of the team. I'll tell you right now, I've got a prediction for you. Kicker and Boster, low-key, are actually going to pull off the transition that only the greatest Western players typically have done, which is you used to be some of the stars of a team, but you actually genuinely learn the other roles as you bring in different players, and by the end, you're actually the supportive elements, but it allows the other players to be the stars, and then you're just OP as fuck. Because guess what? If your 4th best player is Boster, you're going to be a very good teammate, because he passes the eye test still. If Kicker is your worst player, I think we can start fucking matching this team up with anyone in the world. Like, I see this team right now. I listen, I don't know if they'll win, but I think they actually straight up, whoever wins the Vitality match, I think wins that tournament, Davey. So I think if they beat Vitality, they do win that tournament, mate. And I think actually the squad they have now, with how powered up they are, everyone else has been talking about, who can really beat Na'Vi? There's no one. Like, Gambit hasn't got the experience, Heroic has a weird mental problem. Then let's put VP in there, mate, because they're the next name. Like, I would have them above G2. So, like, I'd actually love to see them very soon play against Na'Vi in a proper LAN best of 3. I think that'd be a really interesting match. So I think it's a great move all around. I can't really see the negatives. And the best part is, after Gambit sort of haven't at the moment lived up on LAN to the, like, be a true winner champion, we've suddenly got another CIS squad that can take their place while we wait for Gambit. So, mate, if Gambit get their shit together in like 2 months, this is going to be an amazing pro scene. All those complaints before. This is why people don't understand eras. They don't look historically. There is no such thing as a real soft era, by the way, because the odds that every other team doesn't change player and they all keep bad lineups that aren't good enough to challenge you for the whole, like, 6 months, it doesn't happen. Like, what happened with Na'Vi is great because they were so dominant early. Everyone's making these massive moves. Everyone's gambling everything, as you see with Vitality. And that means that actually, if Na'Vi can keep winning the next 3 or 4 months, they probably are the best, mate. Like, the point is they're going to get even harder competition as people re-up specifically to beat them and match them in firepower. And there's the last thing I'll say. I know people haven't thought this through. If you look at the lineup VP has, it's one of the only teams I think can go firepower head-to-head with Na'Vi, actually. Look how much skill they've got spread across the team. The only thing I will say, the one thing that does make me hold back a little is when the team's going to be as good as they are now, I don't want to see any of that Jane bullshit. It's fine to save when it's correct. Device and Shiro save all the time, mate. It's fine to save when it's like, it's a questionable 1v3 that, I'd probably just die straight away. You have to go for them in normal situations. You have to rotate properly. You have to back your teammates up. You can't demand glass cannon AWPs. We can't have any of that shit, because I'll say this right now. Those shenanigans were all fun in games where Jim was far and away the best player before they had Iskander, and basically it was just his team, and they were like, like in reality, like the 11th best team or whatever. If you're going to be a contender, I can't have any bullshit like that pull me back, because I do think it actually could be Jim that pulls you down a little bit in that team, just because of his bullshit with the way his style of play and his decisions, As long as that doesn't affect the team, I think this could be an amazing team. I think the sky's the limit.
Yeah, I mean, I do kind of agree. James definitely is. I think I agree with you. He can kind of hold them back. The one thing that I do say is I'm not entirely as convinced on Buster right now in his current role. I don't think he's performed super well over the past however long. I mean, I'm just looking at the stats right now. He is, like, statistically the worst player on the team.
Sure.
But it doesn't really, like, it's not like significantly worse or anything. Like, him and Kickert are right there, and Flit's just like a little bit better. Like, it's not anything crazy. But I think Buster really does need to I can't really explain it because he has fully embraced the role. He just like doesn't get that many kills. Like he just doesn't he doesn't win that. He just doesn't get that many kills anymore. And it does get to a point where obviously in VP games there is just less kills to get because they're saving so often. So there is just less kills to get. Like really there it's a weird thing. So there's that as well. So their stats are kind of weird because there's nobody who has crazy high ratings because there's nobody who's getting lots of kills. So it's just kind of weird. I think Buster and Kicker really are going to be the ones that determine whether or not this team becomes a true contender or not. So in that sense, I do agree with what you're saying. I'm just not convinced that they'll be able to do it. That's all.
Also, if people don't know, that is definitely not a team that people liked to play against, even when they had Sanji, mate. Like that style of play is just really annoying. Like as much as people think like, it'd be easy, you just do X, Y, and Z. You wouldn't. Like it goes against so many natural tendencies as a pro and how you want to play the game. And by the way, how it's fun to play the game. You basically have to play like a shit game of Counter-Strike to go into their world and beat them. Do you have any thoughts on this, Maui, before we move on?
I think we covered a lot about VP.
Right.
I'm good.
Right, here's my good point. It's actually a fairly short one, but I thought it was a good point to make, which is I've just put Zebu has been unaffected by the team being dead. Because I actually think that's a mega underrated quality. This is how you know people like Zebu really are like from another fucking universe, mate. Because people immediately take them for granted. Like not only do we now, because of Zebu and Bit, expect every rookie in year one to just be god tier from the day they step in the server. But even more, like this is one thing that used to drive me mad back in the days when Simple, Nico were on those bad teams where they really did have to, like, if not straight 1v5, like they had very little help, put it that way. Like even when they'd have teammates that were good, it was like a fractured team, or, you know, in the case of Nico, even his best teams had to be international teams. He never got to have a team with all his fucking countrymen and the same line. You know, they always had some disadvantage going against them. If you remember, loads of fans used to have those stupid arguments that would go like, oh, it's easier to get all those kills when you're the worst player though, on a bad team because then there's only you're getting the kill. It's like, no, you're wrong on every single level. It's the opposite. And what's great is I knew this would happen. One day you will find out that when Coldzera, Forest, Olaf, Device, when they go to other teams and they don't have all the bangers, you're going to learn the lesson that you didn't understand back then. And you have now. Because people like Zewu, mate, the joke is, it's almost like he just decides whether he's good or not. Like, no external factors apparently affect this guy. Doesn't matter how shit his team is. Like, he literally has genuinely a feeder on his fucking team. I'm sick and tired of dancing around this Kyojin thing. He isn't doing it intentionally, right? I will say this. Kyojin should never have been in this position. It was a Hail Mary, because there's no talent in the French team. They were trying to stay French, right? And obviously they had the whole bizarre thing with Nevera, where they didn't fully want to commit to him, and quite frankly I think he was falling off anyway, and obviously he's left the game now. But Kyojin is genuinely a guy that if you look down the line of players before a LAN match, you know that guy is going to feed a load of kills to my enemy and die loads of times, right? If you're a star player, that just fucking saps your will to play the game, mate. Star players aren't like the dickhead fan who's on Reddit who probably does go into a matchmaking game at LEM and then see like he's losing on Mirage and go, well, I'll get my extra kills, and then he ends the game like, what the fuck, bro? I had 27 kills. Like, what were you guys doing? Like, pro players aren't really like that beyond the dickheads, and you can guess who the dickheads are, right? People like Zewu, they aren't trying to just like look good in losses. They're trying to win these games. They're trying to make mega decisive games. So the idea that like no matter what happens to the Vitality team, it can look good, it can look bad, it can have inexperienced players, it can have the most experienced. Nothing affects this guy. Like, he had a period, let's say, the first 6 months of the year where maybe it was off a little bit. I will add in as well, like, think about how fucking taxed everyone was by the online era. Then I think most people stopped giving a flying fuck and were just waiting for Lance to come back. So you just look at his play. He's gotten back to arguably his career best play these last few months, and with the potentially deadlines. The reason I find that so mega is because, again, when everyone discusses the new Vitality with the Astralis players and Sonic coming in, part of what makes you excited is you just assume already that Z was going to be amazing, and then we can see what the others do, right? It's actually a reasonable assumption now. It's probably true. I imagine it won't affect him at all. If anything, here's the bad thing. I could even see a world where he might get better. He might actually like open up another level to his game.
Zywoo is probably from everything that all the interviews and what his teammates have said of him, it feels like this guy is the stone cold killer you would want. When we were describing what we would want in an ideal LAN opper, I mean, he's it. And he's, even though he hasn't had the amount of tenure on LAN that some of the greats have, I mean, even in 2019, we could see, you know, at Epicenter, for example, just how fantastic this guy could be. And that I think one thing that actually really stood out to me early on in interviews is that they said that basically when he travels, he never gets bad sleep, and that he always is just completely rested. the mentality that he has around his life.
Wait a minute. The idea they would just throw that as a throwaway comment. Like, by the way, that is everything. People don't know. Nearly all pros and talent are getting terrible sleep the majority of the time. The whole thing is, this is why people who are fans at home don't know. We actually don't complain as much as we could, because we just know that's life when you're at LANs, isn't it? Like, you just go, like, look, if you get 6 hours straight uninterrupted, you had a good night's sleep at some of these LANs, right, Davey?
Yeah, dude, absolutely. I was about to say that is like the definition of being built different right there. Okay.
Yes.
If he can just like travel and just, oh no, I'm well rested, got 8 hours of sleep. No, I'm good, man. Yeah, no, I can just sleep anywhere. People that can do that, that's an unfair advantage, actually. They need to start like drug testing them or something. This is ridiculous because
that's like that thing they have, dude, where there was like 8 signs when you're born that you're going to be like a future Buddha of the world, and you've been like, that's like one of them. If you're not only born on the day that Counter-Strike Retail is released, but then also it's like, oh, and by the way, guys, and it's small detail, but I always get 8 hours sleep no matter where. What the fuck are you talking about? Is this a CIA operation? Is this guy real? Is he actually a human being? Is he some sort of fucking hybrid clone built from fucking simple spunk or something that someone captured from an event like 18 years ago? What is this? Who is this guy? He's not only the best, he's just getting 8 hours sleep every night. What?
He's literally an android. Yeah.
What is that? I know.
That's absolute bullshit. I'm actually pissed.
That annoys me. Pissed. I know. I don't like it. That's actually made me like him less. Mauisnake. No one's
I hate him
just getting 8 hours every night. I know exactly.
I've always been a simple stan. Now I hate ZywOo. I can't stand the guy now. That pisses me off.
And also, I'd just like to imagine, because you think of the greatest French players, like Shocks, obviously, he's looking over there like, oh, yeah, it's a good idea, probably getting 8 hours. I should probably try getting 8 hours of sleep back in my career. What could have been? I don't think you'd even think of that, sadly. Sadly, it's probably not got the self-awareness.
I mean, seriously, everything you could want in a consistent opera, ZywOo has it in the server, out the server, in sleep, out of sleep. He's probably in the dream world, actually, just fragging people with rapid eye movement going on. You know, it's there's nothing that there's also just no situation where I think ZywOo counts himself out. That's one thing for me, where when they played that Gambit series, and there were just rounds where it's like, oh man, ZywOo's in a really bad position here, but he still will just maintain perfect crosshair placement, perfect, like his reaction time is still on point. Like he knows that he has to frag out. Like I remember he had some post plans on Mirage against Gambit, and it's just he just looks like he's going to die in the next couple seconds. He's going to get traded out, and then he just taps 2 people with an AK in a row in the face. And it's just those kind of moments are when you just think that this guy is unstoppable, to a point where we thought coldzera was probably that Terminator back in the day, and admittedly he was in 2015-16. But this is a level that is just with greater mechanics, I'd say.
Yes.
Even better mechanics than what Cold had then. ZywOo is doing it now, and he's doing it with an AWP and a rifle. He can do it with both. So he's more versatile.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, when you have an AWP too, it does help in those situations, because you do, like we talked about earlier, you do just have to shoot them once and they just die. Yeah. But I've never got I've never had the displeasure of getting farmed by ZywOo like I did with Cold. So I don't really know. Cold was definitely, and for my money, he was the epitome of any situation's winnable, and he won't change how he plays no matter what, which was infuriating to play against. But.
Mm-hmm. Yes. I will get that piece done eventually, don't worry, guys, where I actually explain why he's the Terminator or whatever. Because again, that's another one. It's actually a good analogy, though, to ZywOo, I think, Mauisnake, because the quality they have is this, right? Simple's intimidating in the sense that it's like going against someone in MMA who has like the greatest like punching power ever or whatever, and has like 1 million knockouts. Obviously, you're scared you get knocked the fuck out. Like if you're going against Anderson Silva back in the day or something, right? The problem in this scenario is if you play against ZywOo or coldzera, it's that feeling of just inevitability. It's like they're going to make so many correct decisions. Like you feel like, fuck it, it's not even just to get the fight I have to win. I have to sort of like position correctly. He's probably going to be behind me in a second. Oh, he's going to do this correctly. If I'm in a 1v3, he's the one. Rather, if we're in a 3v1, I know he's going to kill my other 2 teammates, so he's going to have to, like, you have that vibe. Like, that's very rare players you do have that, but that's like, that just wins you like 10% more rounds right there.
You know what it is? I can explain. It applies a lot in a lot of other sports as well, and especially where in Counter-Strike, there's very few players who have the ability to, like, what you're explaining is they slow the game down to their speed, and they force just by existing, they force the other team to make mistakes just by being there, just by playing slow, making every correct decision, don't make any glaring mistakes, and the other team will eventually make mistakes. Right? That is like how that works, and they they can capitalize on it every single time. And that was like Zebu, that was Cold Zera. There's a few other players I can remember who used to be really good at that. Breeze does that as well, actually. Not to the same level, obviously, but he's one of the players who has that same trait in clutches. Zipnix in clutches, obviously, is one of the ones who does that. But the difference is between them is Simple. Simple doesn't do that. Simple will he doesn't do that, like slow the game down, wait for the other team to make mistakes. He will be the one to push you into making a mistake instead. Like he'll push you and he'll hit one crazy shot that makes you angry next time. So next time you fuck up, or so that he pushes forward, gets one shot, and then your team panics like, oh shit, there he is. Now we have to try and peek and trade him, and then he's already gone, and he's back out of it. And it's way more. Both of them are equally frustrating to play against, but for two completely different reasons.
By the way, if no one's ever seen them, because these movies exist for everyone, when people made those, like it's a clever concept, where it's like the reverse POV frag movie, where it's just the opponents showing how they all go. If you ever look up those for Simple and Nico, those are the two players where you understand why they are sort of considered in a different class by even other pro players, because if you just look what their POV looked like, it literally looks like, so I was supposed to shoot a pixel of a guy's arm, like, but fuck me, I guess I'm just shit at the pro, you know what I mean? Like, like these are the best players in the world, better just retire then, I guess, all right. And the Nico one's pretty good as well, because he's not even using the AWP, is he? It's literally just like every Nightmare Fuel game you ever played, where an obvious cheater just Ferrari peeks every corner and instantly headshots all of you, like, and you have no chance ever. Like, that's what all those movies look like. So, right, we'll move on now. That was the real set of good points. It wasn't just, right, that just shows how much I love Kenny S. I just you actually just imprinted on my brain, like, this is my point now, Davey. Like, it's okay.
That was my secret plan, because I knew how much we both love Kenny, so I pushed that one in there,
Yeah, true. Right, we'll go to the bad points now. So, Davey, what was your bad point?
So my bad point is Liquid, and I'm not going with ugly, just bad. And the reason,
that's a distinction. Okay,
yeah, because I do think there is positives to what they're doing, and I do think that there's negatives to what they're doing. So for me, the bad with Liquid is they did that classic sort of NA thing where you bring this upcoming prospect who has a ton of potential into your team, and then don't do anything to actually make him succeed. Like you almost plug and play him. Not exactly. He did get some spots that he normally plays, but that was also where he was a like for like replacement with Twist, more so. Like, for example, Pit on Inferno. Twist play Pit on Inferno. Grim plays Pit on Inferno.
It's just happenstance they give him
exactly.
Those spots
it's happenstance. Right. It wasn't anything intentional. And then when things are going bad and he's the one who's not putting up the best numbers, the community immediately dogpiles on him because he's replacing something that's like, it's an impossible fucking replacement. Twist is one of the greatest players ever from North America.
For sure.
And now you're bringing Grim in, and he's not, you're not actually facilitating him doing well. So that was bad from Liquid. That's not even, so now apparently the rumors are that it's like Elige and Naf, and then Nitro's coming back, and then they're picking up two players, whatever. There's a whole bunch of rumors everywhere. Now, I will say good. I actually think, and I watched your BTN episode recently where you were talking about the moves, and I actually think bringing Nitro back is a great move for two reasons. One, he's the most winningest NAIGL of all time, so that's just one thing. He knows how to win on LAN, right? Obviously, it took them years to get over that hump, and then they went on that crazy Grand Slam streak and all those things. So he knows these players. He knows how to get the best out of Elige, and whether you want to call Elige a diva or not, like it's true, maybe not true. I've never been involved in that team, but Nitro knows how to get the best out of Elige, and Elige is the best player ever from North America. So if he can get the best out of Elige, whether it's just being his friend, just being his homie outside of the server, or doing things in the server that make Elige feel better, whatever it is, if you can get the best out of him, you're going to be successful. And Nitro and Naf also get along. And again, Naf, when you look on paper, Naf's amazing. Naf, for my money, Naf was the hardest player to ever play against on that Liquid team. Because he had that weird X factor that you just can't quantify. So now if you have that core three, you're looking great. I think that core three is really, really good. It's a really good core three to build from. Now, the bad is the next two players that they've been rumored with, which is either like Vinny from Furia, Shox from Vitality, OC from Extra Salt. Now, I'm not trying to disrespect OC here. I think OC's improved significantly over the past year, by the way. He's really gotten up in the meta and all that. I think he's like way better than he used to be. But if you're Liquid, maybe I'm overthinking it, but if you're Team Liquid, you should be a team that goes to events expecting to win. You should be like, I am Team Liquid. We are the number one team from North America. We have won a Grand Slam. We want to win our major. We should be going to every event to win. And I think that it's crazy to me to, don't get me wrong, OC's played really well in the tier 2 NA scene. When he's gone to Europe, he's performed well, not against the best teams in the world though. And so for me, when you have other oppers in the scene, dude, think about it, like Dexter, Elian, Kenny S, all three of these players are proven LAN players in Europe. And I think that if Liquid was more ambitious, they would be going after any of those three over OC. It doesn't mean OC's bad. It doesn't mean if he joins Liquid, he won't do well. But I think that that isn't a good sign that that is who they're going for instead of those are just three names off the top of my head right now. There's just better options in my opinion. And as far as riflers go, Vinny and Shock, like, I'm sorry, what the fuck? What is that? What is it? Why not keep Grim? Why not keep Grim? If you're going Vinny and Shocks, keep Grim. He's just better. It makes no sense to me. Makes no sense to me.
I'll take this. I think OC actually is going to do pretty well on Liquid. I put that as close to a guarantee as I could. I think he'll do pretty.
Well, we say pretty well what we're saying though.
Okay,
because remember, I thought Davey did a very fair job there, where he said that to him, Team Liquid essentially should be trying to compete with Na'Vi, right?
Yeah, so I'll put it like this. I'll say the bad of this is that I think OC is good. I think OC actually is, if he played on a European team right now at the tier 1, he'd probably be one of the 15 best oppers in the world pretty easily.
Oh, I mean, fucking sure, bro, but so is Mantu. So, like, this is what we talked about earlier. There's so many. Yeah. Like there, when you go down the list, like when you're looking at it, like Entropic as Elian, not going to be better than Elian, better than Lucky probably. So that's one thing.
Yeah,
better than Brokey. I'll give you that.
Okay.
Like, you know, but when you're going down the list, he's like, dude, I don't know, man.
So basically, I'll jump on the bad part of it. Is that what I think the problem is with Liquid is that I think their ceiling is determined too much by OC. That's the problem with me with this, because they're bringing in Shocks or Vinny as that fifth player. I think it's going to be Shocks. If it's going to be Shocks, it's just almost too much of a known quantity for me. I think Nitro also is too much of a known quantity. We know what Elysia Naf's ceiling is, and then that just means that the only X factor for this team is OC, and is he going to make that transition? And that's where you're putting all of your eggs into a singular prospect basket, and I don't think that is something where Liquid should be doing that. There needs to be another player that is of the caliber of Elysia Naf to support them, because Nitro isn't going to be a 1.0 player. He's gonna probably be a 0.9 rating player for a while. And even though I think he's going to be serviceable, I think he's going to be better than Lucky. Actually, I think he's going to be like way better than Lucky. But I don't think that he's going to be that good, and I don't think that he's going to reach heights that they would need him to reach if they want to contend, because we also know too much of what Shocks has been doing lately. So yeah, if it's just OC, that has to be the one. Like, how is Liquid ceiling a top 3 team, or are they a top 8 team? And I think that is entirely decided by one player. So I think that's bad.
Yeah,
my problem. Yeah, go on.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
My main problem with this move is, one, I'm more towards the Davey side on the OC move. Like, here's the way I describe it. I notice most people never actually, because let's be real, most of them don't watch him play. Most people never really had discussions around how good OC is as an AWPer. What their discussions usually went like is they just saw that for months and months he was putting up the stats. So they go, he's earned his spot. Like, I agree with that as a premise, right? If you prove yourself enough at tier 2 or the bottom of tier 1, yes, in theory, someone, by the way, spoiler, a guy called Grim did the same thing. You should eventually get a crack on a team. But the key thing is, luckily, he's not going to be put in the Grim spot, because at the end of the day, there is no, like, you're the AWPer and you play support positions. If anyone in any team does that, like G2, that's just not a good AWPer. So in reality, he's going to get his spots at least. So at least he has a chance, unlike what Grim got in Team Liquid. But my problem is, I also agree, like, I've watched some of the games he had online where he was doing mega. The problem is, and this is something I came to in the online era, right? You can get like a feel for if someone has skills offline. You can't they have to sink or swim. You have to throw them in the deep end, guys. It's like the baby bird getting kicked out of the nest. You don't really know till you put them in that position if they sink or they swim. Like, I have to say, even though I said earlier, like, I knew like Shearer wouldn't get to the end of the major. If I'd have watched the online era only, he'd be one of the players you'd pick to have a chance to do it though, to just hit the ground running and be godlike. Just so happened, you know, he was good at times and he had a few games he was off. So I don't really know. Like, if I fast forward in time 6 months and I come out of the time machine, am I really seeing OCs like, oh, they're going head-to-head with Zimu and Simply and Device, and he's winning the game for them, and they're bit, no, probably not. You know, he's probably losing those games. He can probably still be a competent player like Mauisnake. He's got 10 to 15, yeah. So my issue is, for where Team Liquid is now and the kind of prospects I know they actually have of people who would say yes, it ain't the worst move if I'm picking of the names that they have to pick from. I just hate the whole way they've managed the Team Liquid squad. Because what I'll say is this, right? On paper, when you put those players down, it's not going to sound bad, especially if indeed they don't get Vinny and they have Shocks instead and he's like the worst player on paper on the team. That's going to look like, hey, this isn't a bad team on paper. My problem goes like this. We're not still doing on-paper rosters for Team Liquid. Is anyone else has no one else noticed, like I did, that Team Liquid and Evil Geniuses used the concept of an on-paper roster to mask being dog shit for 1 year now? This is terrible. Like, both of those teams you would look at and you'd go, but if you've got Elysian and NAF on a team, if you've got Breeze and Cirque, surely you can win some of these games almost back. So turns out, no. Turns out, actually, you have to still be in good form. You have to be dialed in. You have to care about your position. The team has to use you well. You have to have the other players all make sense. They have to complement each other. Obviously, the part in Counter-Strike we can never actually speculate on realistically and know until it happens is what the chemistry of a team's like. You know, you don't really know until you put those players in the mix. So on paper, I agree, it looks like a better roster. I just don't actually think, if I go with Davy's angle, because I'm with him on that angle, in my opinion, certain teams, either because of the legacy of the org or certain key players you have now. Like, if you have a piece right now that could be on a major winning team, realistically, your team should build a major winning team. So the reason why, like, FaZe Clan to me is always underwhelming is because I know if you give Carrigan the players tomorrow, we can get cooking. We can start winning some tournaments like literally tomorrow. You give me the right players. So the same thing, Team Liquid should be in that category. They should be going for the absolute top. This is a move that'd be a good move if you were just trying to move up the rankings and go, let's get back in the top 10, lads. Let's get in the mix again. I want to see them actually challenge for the title, because I agree with you, Davey. If you look at players like Elysian NAF, I'll tell you two things that are mega about them. They're mega consistent, and secondly, somehow, while they've played together, they've been able to perfectly find their roles and they've never looked uncomfortable. They both look like they get everything they want. So my issue is, if I have my stars set, all I have to do is figure the other ones out now. And yet the other players look like the ones where it's just like you're picking up scraps. You go, what, a Shock's being kicked? I guess we could maybe try him. What, Vinny's not in that team? Fuck it. I mean, give him, he was all right, wasn't he? Oh, Ussi's dominant in tier 2. I mean, who else can we take, right? Like, that ain't the position Team Liquid should be in. You should be the guys. By the way, the idea anyone like a Dexter guy would ever say no to you, what's going on with your team at this point in time, you know?
Dude, this is what I mean. If you look at Nitro, Elige, NAF, like you were talking about, the chemistry is already there and we know they're winners, right? That's guaranteed, done, that's over. So now you just need to fill in the last two spots. This Dexter, Elian, Zorte, 3 CIS oppers who are instantly tier 1 oppers if you put them on a top 10 team. Instantly, all 3 of them. These guys are insane. Seriously, CIS just pumps out god tier oppers. It's fucking ridiculous. I don't know what's going on over there. And then on top of that, now you have Kenny S leaving G2. I know Kenny is a bit more of a risk than the other 3 just because of all the things we talked about earlier. But even still, just from purely gameplay perspective, there is no
I'd love that gamble, mate.
That would be it would be a worth gamble because of the fact that you have Elige, NAF, Nitro right there. They automatically respect Kenny. Like you said, they've played against him since 2014. There is a huge mutual respect there. And you know, if Kenny is moving to North America, or maybe probably not because of COVID, Liquid will probably spend more time in Europe. But regardless, Kenny's going to be moving in with them. They're going to be doing the boot camp thing. And Kenny's coming back so Nitro's coming back to CS after trying Valorant. Kenny did like the whole thing where, you're right, I'm not really motivated right now. Let me try streaming Valorant, playing Valorant, realize it's dog shit, doesn't like it. Now he wants to come back to CS. Nitro, Kenny, both reinvigorated, remotivated. Kenny and Nitro, you put that on one team, that is totally worth the gamble, more so for me than OC, even though, like I said, this seems like I'm bashing on OC more so than I'm promoting the other guys as better options, more so than anything bad about OC. So I just think that when you take those 3 CIS oppers and Kenny as an option, you have 4 better options that I don't know if they've gone for it. I don't know if they've even tried. I don't know. I don't know if they just want to have a North American team purely for NA marketing. Doesn't really make sense if they bring in Shocks then, but I really don't know what the approach is. But for my money, there's way better options that they're not being linked with, and I think that's sad.
Okay. All right, Mauisnake, what was your bad point?
My bad point is that the Glaive op era lasted 3 days. So that's it simply didn't hold up at IEM Winter. They're already out of the tournament. at the time of this recording, of course. And the thing is that when they played against Liquid, I watched his POV to see how much opping he got done, and he bought the op one time in one of the maps against Liquid, and then he threw it away in the middle of the round just to pick up a rifle. So he clearly isn't actually that capable with the gun, doesn't really trust his skills with it as much as we hoped at the Blast Fall Finals. And Lucky's still not using the gun, so they still don't have an opper at all. And if you look at op kills per round, I mean, all the primary oppers in the scene had more op kills per round than Glaive, except for one guy on Tyloo, but it's just because they got battered, so he didn't have the op as much as, as Glaive would. But either way, that's just pretty much my bad. The fact that Glaive has clearly moved away from the gun. They're not even prioritizing getting it in his hands. He doesn't even want it in his hands. And I think what we saw was a one-off thing. So it's a little bit of a bad. And on top of it is the fact that they're still just using Lucky as a crappy rifler. So I just don't like where this Astralis is going.
Surely they're just waiting till the new year. This isn't this. They know this isn't their 5-man lineup. They know it's not. But to be fair, Config and BlameF have looked really solid since joining. Yeah. So that's a huge positive for them, because I was worried for them, to be honest. And now it is at the point where if there was only some Danish opper in the scene that they could, that maybe they had on their books before, who they could bring in to be that fifth piece, then this Astralis lineup would be again one of the top in the world with Config, BlameF,
for sure,
Glaive, Zip. They just need that one Danish opper. There's just no good Danish oppers anymore, unfortunately. So
maybe a guy with the most MVP medals in history. Wouldn't say no to him. Wouldn't kick his ass out of bed in the morning.
If they're out there.
Hypothetically, if that person existed, that would be great. But we just don't have the data to know if that's true or not.
Although then again, I say I wouldn't kick his ass out of bed in the morning. Ironically, wasn't that half the problem? Pause.
Pause.
That
went well.
That's a slow burner. You'll get that one back later. No, listen, because I actually edit this show, I don't take any of the shit I say out. It's not even like by the numbers. They actually do protect my career by taking out the potentially dodgy shit. No, here's what I'll say on this one, right? That's why I actually think in the end, my position on that whole Glaive AWPing, Lucky AWPing thing will be vindicated. I reckon one day they'll admit it in an interview, Mauisnake. It'll just be years from now, or Lucky will have to be out of the team. I think what you will find genuinely is they didn't have any say in that. The Astralis org did it. As soon as Glaive, by the way, and Zipnik signed those long deals to be an Astralis, they no longer have any power over the Astralis lineup. That's not the type of org they are. And we know they're not an org that does big buyouts and spends loads of money. And they clearly don't care about looking a bit silly in order to sort of run a PR campaign. In this case, the campaign goes, look, we can just replace device with the next device that we found. You try a new innovative scouting system, some bullshit like that to push the stock price up, basically, and make themselves seem like this amazing sporting organisation with all these unique approaches. So at the end of the day, I genuinely think what happened was Glaive is just such a winner. He looked at what he had to work with in his toolkit, which is very limited, and just said, right, fuck it. It isn't working with this kid AWPing on LAN against the best teams in the world. So you know what? You're not going to AWP anymore. Just take a rifle, play back a bit, just try and do what you can. Don't die. I'm going to take it in these particular situations like CT side nuke, etc. Even then, I think if you go and look at the way he did it, he looked like he intentionally tried to get the first pick every single time CT side. So that tells me he probably even watched a demo and was just like, right, think about it. Is he playing heroic? And this is when the crowd was against heroic completely. I think that was just a super veteran figuring out, this is a scenario where I can put extra pressure on their team. I mean, by the way, just imagine even the feeling of getting dummied on by the IGL just fucking open you all at the beginning of every single round. So you start every round 4v5. That would be so demoralizing. So I think he just is such a winner. He just did it. And then he just happened to catch a perfect storm and had an amazing series, an amazing game. And it made it look like, oh my God, is he going to keep doing this? No. I mean, he's a smart guy. He's smart enough to know you don't just try your luck forever, man. I'm just going to do that. Unlike, funnily enough, his counterpart MSL, who really did just try to make that his whole shit. Oh, maybe I am just secretly the best. No, obviously not. That's a ridiculous. Why would you run that fucking experiment 700 times and wonder how it didn't work 600? Clue up, mate. At least Glaive had the wherewithal to realise, right, on this team, we're just going to have to go 5 rifle eventually out. It's going to be the logical place. And by the way, 5 rifle isn't even a problem. I actually think this is a perfect example when you go 5 rifle. You're not wasting extra money. You're in an economy, by the way, where, especially on T side, you can fuck the CTs if you just buy as many AKs as possible and get kills on the board. And then thirdly, you just signed 2 of the best riflers in the world. So at this point in time, I think it makes perfect sense the way Glaive's doing it. If you know the sort of situation, he's sort of been painted into a corner by the Astralis org and he's just doing what he can. But I agree with you. If anyone saw that match against Heroic and was like, oh my God, is he going to continue? No. I don't think he was. I think the fact that he himself even just sort of like cut the fucking cord on it immediately. It's not even like he had 5 bad series and then cut the cord. He just did it immediately, didn't he, Bowie? So to me, I think it'll just come out one day. He just did like an executive decision in that moment. The idea about Lockie, listen, I'm not buying for 1 second that Lockie went to them like, hey guys, you know that one thing you hired me to do? I think I shouldn't do that actually.
So,
but can I still have a job, sir? Do I get paid yet? Like, no way. There's no way he did that, is there?
What probably happened there is they're like in practice, like, look, man, their operas are just shitting on us. Honestly, like we can't win these scrims. This opera's farming us. And they're just like, if you complain about the ops enough, then Lucky eventually goes, maybe I should try rifling. Like,
there you go.
Yeah. Oh no, what a good idea. Yeah, no, maybe you should. You're pretty good with the rifle. Like, that's probably how that conversation goes.
Oh, they just go, hey, the thing we used to love about Device was, in his early years, he was more of a hybrid player.
Exactly.
He would take the AWP when he was like, just mind fuck this kid completely. So,
exactly.
I want you to follow his trajectory and then get this guy the fuck out of the door next one. Oh yeah, sorry, Lucky, I'm just talking to the boss there. Hey Casper, see you, mate. No, anyway, so how are we going to sort out this AWP equation here, Lucky? Like, come on, man. They're so cynical of that team.
Lucky's not even like a terrible rifler. Like, there's games and rounds where he doesn't look out of place at all. But for some reason, when he was opping, just totally does look out of place. Like, it just didn't make any sense. It was very odd.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, go on. If you got a point.
I mean, just the quote. The quote itself is just so phony. And in the way, okay, so the exact answer that Lucky had in that interview about was it your choice to change the role? He says, I can't. In quotes, I came up with the idea a little bit that maybe sometimes I should try to rifle. If that isn't the least confident response I've ever read, it's the most meek way of putting that you possibly could have without saying, it wasn't my idea. It's just the media training. All the media training is telling me I have to say this. All the media trainings have to say this, and he's trying to break free in that moment and just say what really happened, but he just can't. So.
Dude, you know what's funny though is just like eye test, and I mean stats wise, he is performing better than Zip and Glaive, which is funny. But also eye test wise, if anything, Lucky was a long-term replacement for Zip, not for Device. When you watch his style with the rifle, he is much more of a Zipex style rifler than a Device style opera.
Even baits Zipnix. He even baits Zipnix a lot.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying.
He literally tries to bait him. So
he is the most natural baiter when you watch him play. He is a natural baiter. Trust me, I'm an expert. I am also a natural baiter. Okay, he was the natural Zip replacement, not the natural Device replacement. I think if anything, their great scouting and shit got that one like a little fucking backwards. If anything,
Glaive even said in one of the first interviews about Lucky, oh yeah, he's really good at learning nades. We're impressed with how fast he learns nades. That was one big compliment early on. So that's perfect.
Here's the bad news though. If you actually said it's okay, we can move these pieces around, and maybe instead of being the AWP div, he just becomes the Zipnix player. That'd be great if you hadn't just signed Zipnix to one of the longest contracts
exactly
in the history of Counter-Strike, and he looks washed as fuck. So it's like, man, chance to be a fine thing. Like, listen, we could have that convo. If you're going to bring in an AWP and put this guy as a spot, maybe it can work. Maybe that is his game. But obviously the problem is they fucked themselves on that one, haven't they? Because they had to sign enough of the... Basically, if people don't get it, aside from Glaive, who obviously you would want to re-sign, I think they genuinely only signed fucking Zipnix because they knew they weren't keeping any of the other names. And if you only have one of the original names that won all the... It just doesn't count. Like, no one's going to give a fuck. It's not going to be Astralis to most people. If you can keep two, even though, by the way, it's sort of the wrong two, you can convince people, like, this is the core, actually, and we've kept it together, and, we've reshuffled it. You haven't, by the way. The core was, like, Glaive plus any of the other players, but okay. We'll just leave it at that. Right? For my bad point... This is one where technically we're speculating about rumours here, but I'll put it out there because nobody's heard anything of the contrary. Despite all this news you've heard about who might be joining G2 as a player, the only info anyone heard about who might be the coach of G2 was when Malik was released or told it, like, services aren't required anymore. It was said in the article that Nell wrote on like 1vp.fr or whatever that fucking site's called that he writes for. It was intimated that they might get Emmy, who obviously, if people don't know, way back in the day used to play with people like Nico, Nexa, probably Hunter at some point in time, I'm guessing, because he's from the Balkan region, obviously, right? And he was someone, if people don't remember, who was with the Contact team at some point in like Flashpoint. It was like a stand-in at some point. Yeah, he was with FPX as well. And then obviously he would be joining as the coach, right, to replace Malik. Right. The reason why I have put this as a bad one, I know it's not confirmed it happens, but I'll say the alarming thing to me is that it was even put out there. So intimated, like, it's like plausible. Like, Nell's a real journalist in that sense. I've never seen any of his stories be a lie. And then secondly, I haven't heard any other rumours. Like, I haven't heard, listen, I know I'll just tell you straight up, I know all the coaches. So if I go and talk to my mates like Zeus, Yanko, fucking Kassad. They're not getting these offers. Like, well, I can't comment on the G2 one. Maybe they have in the recent moments. I don't know. But when I talked to them previously, they weren't getting offers from teams like G2. So to me, it's like when the major happened, right? I told you the good news is this: despite what Hunter said in that interview, spoiler, Hunter doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about, guys. He's just a guy who plays Counter-Strike. He isn't hooked into this. Like, I don't know why he said that comment as though he was the GM, where he said essentially they wouldn't be having any roster changes. They were always going to have roster changes, even maybe if they've even won the fucking major. I don't know. That might have been the only case that might have been able to avoid it. So I was confident, like, right, this is great. You're going to make roster moves. You need roster moves. Now, some of the roster moves I've heard, I have my own takes about. I can see the gambles. I can see why they're going for some of them. Some of them I'm not as big a fan of. Depends which players end up coming. Is it Mauisnake and Rops? Is it just Mauisnake? Is it Alexi B and Mauisnake? Like, there's a bunch of angles where it could get fun. But I do think they're overlooking the coaching position. And to me, when you have a team as good as they had, in terms of, like, you've got Nico, he's in amazing form, you've just had a bunch of really big runs in tournaments, just bring in a coach who's one of the best in the world. You don't gamble then. That's not a position you gamble on. Like, why would you gamble on a guy? And also, let's just add this in there as well. Even though I can't know this is why, I'm going to go ahead and guess this wasn't the org that picked him if they're really thinking of this guy. This just screams nepotism. This screams that one of Hunter, Nexa, and Nico, if not all three, just said, please hire this guy. We like him and we think he can do the job. Like, I know people will think, like, get the coach to please the players. I hate that move personally. Like, I think if he comes in, he'll just be an average or not that good coach. Remember, he's never really fucking done the role at a tier 1 level. He's never been in, like, when I talk about those names I said before, even if people want to diss on Yanko, mate, his resume kicked the shit out of Emmys. What are you talking about? This guy had teams that were some of the better teams in the world. He had top 10 teams in the world. He had teams going head to head with the best squads. So to me, it's just criminal that, like, for coaching, we still, for the coaching role, like, it's like almost like who's mates with the players. We don't, where's the transfer market for coaches? Like, where are the massive names? Like, why aren't people in, like, why isn't Extaz joining this team? Or Yanko or Kassad? Give me some fucking talent here, mate.
Yeah, I will say, for me, it's more shocking they're not going after Zeus, who's just like just there right now. Who's just an option as a coach, who's one of the winningest coaches of all time. So that's crazy.
By the way, if any fan goes, because this is the sort of world we live in, Davey, where even though it was in my interview that Zeus said I'm going to become a content creator, not a coach, people will forget it was in my interview and just repeat back to me lines from my interview and go, no, but actually, Thorin, he's becoming a content creator. Yeah, I know, I'm the one who revealed that to the world, but okay. But all I'll say is this. I know him as a person, so I can tell you from the fucking horse's mouth, if it's a team like G2, as in like a team that could win the bit, he will come back. Yep, he isn't coming. The point is, he isn't coming back to do, like, he's done some fucking stupid shit like he did in EG, where they didn't give him any roster control, and he just had to, like, play. Like, it's like, good news, you get Mihao as your new player. Yeah, he's not coming back for that shit. He's not coming back for that rodeo. But if you put him, like, if you give him one of the best teams in the world, he will come back. I'm telling you. So he would be available. I'm telling you in that sense.
Yep, absolutely. And I think as far as Yanko and Kassad go, all of the players on that team know them. And if the org's not interested and the players don't want them, there's something else there.
Yeah, there's a point there, I guess.
Like, if, because Nico's worked with Yanko, Nexa's worked with Yanko. You know, they all have worked with them before, Kassad and Yanko. So if none of them are saying bring in Yanko or bring in Kassad, that means either they don't think they're going to do a good job with this team, or they don't think they were very good coaches, or whatever it is. They don't want to work with them again. So if that's the case, then there's no point in bringing them back in, because there's no point. If the players don't want to work with the coach before you bring the coach in, then it's fucking doomed. But also on the same point, like you said, I don't think you should bring in a coach just because the players want that coach specifically. There has to be some sort of balance there. I think Xtaz would be a great choice, obviously, but for me, I think for this team specifically, I think Zeus is by far the best choice, and it's surprising to me if they haven't approached Zeus. I would be surprised and say that I would agree with you. They're overlooking the coaching role for this team pretty significantly.
I'll even add this in there as well, because it's not every team I have the direct connect. I've literally told Carlos directly, Zeus is available, you can get him. Do you want me to hook it up? Like, I've essentially just give him on a silver platter, you know. And I did this like the second the major was ending, basically. I just told him straight up, like, these, same as, by the way, spoiler, if some people end up joining, I'll tell people the stories, but there's some people I recommended that you might have heard the names in the mix, etc. Maui, what do you think on this topic?
I mean, from just watching Emmy's recent work against on FPX, all I could say is that I saw the switch from when they took Crystal, then they were trying I mean, it's fitting, right, that you actually replace your IGL and you put Sunny in first. But then they put in Sunny, they put in Chris J, and then they put in Emmy, and it felt like they were just running the strats that Crystal had into the ground with every preceding in-game leader that they were adding until the roster finally died, and then FPX dropped them as the team. So I can't really see where Emmy is supposed to show any sort of like tactical prowess or anything like that. Like if you can't really reform that team, like that team had some really strong players like Modern, Stiko, Farlig, like Zane. Like honestly, those 4 players were
Zen
good
is
enough
insane, dude. He's
yeah,
really
like I mentioned them last, and they all are pretty good, honestly.
Yeah.
So if you can't make that roster achieve any significant results whatsoever, then I have questions about how you're supposed to do any better on the biggest stage in the world.
No, I mean, also the other thing as well that I can't handle about moves like that is, right, one of the things, I'll just say this right now, because one of the things, if you ever notice like a trend, you should point it out, because if it ever comes true, obviously in the future, then you've sort of like chronicled it early. I'll just say this right now. I don't think Nico actually likes tactical Counter-Strike. I don't think he likes what I love to watch, like very like in-depth, like a system. And you basically, what I love about that approach to Counter-Strike is if you don't have a Na'Vi or FaZe Clan-esque roster, you can still match up with those squads, because what you essentially do with the system is it allows the bad players to always know where they're supposed to be and what they're supposed to do and how they help the star players, etc. The star players get their frags anyway. It's like any sport. Like those guys, the team's built around them. But you want a good system that elevates everyone else and means that the team collectively. A good system also, by the way, can make up for like lack of chemistry in certain aspects. You know, you just throw 5 players in a server like Team Liquid 2019 did. You have to just hope they come together and frag everyone's head off, and everyone somehow fits whatever role they vaguely have in the team, but don't have necessarily like a strictly set position always. So this is the reason I bring this up is this. Think of Nico's career. So he played under God B briefly when he was in Mousesports in 2015, but that was when like they kicked God B out of that because they claimed he didn't work hard enough or something. Then he had the team where he was himself the IGL at one point in time, while like essentially still a rookie LAN player in 2016, and that was a team that had terrible players. So I can tell you right now, they weren't playing really good tactics. They were basically just playing how does Nico position himself on the map to get as many kills as possible while sort of helping you a little bit, because I can't just only do it myself. That was like how he played then. Then he went to FaZe Clan, and all those iterations had tons of star players and skilled players, and I think that's actually unfortunately what started to somewhat degrade Carrigan's reputation, because it made idiot fans who didn't watch him in his other teams think he only plays like Nico Go Kill, like that sort of like loose shit. Whereas in reality what Carrigan did was, if you give him literally some of the best players in the entire world at their roles, yeah, obviously I'm not going to give everyone like super detailed strats there. You're all the best in the world. I'm just going to do mid-round calls, aren't I? That'd be obnoxious otherwise, wouldn't it? Like, I'm not going to literally tell like Kevin Durant how to fucking dribble the ball up and pass it off. I'm going to kind of let him do it himself, and I've got all the best players. So as a result, though, in FaZe Clan, they weren't a super tactical team, mate. Again, they were getting by off superstar players. Then you come later to this G2 squad. I think they brought a bit of it to the table, but Nexa is his fucking IGL, mate. And you look at that team, all I'll say is this. During the peak of the Nexa G2 team, they were good on 4 maps out of 7, and somehow that was good enough for like number 3 in the world. So I'm just going to say this. I think Nico, because individually he isn't a player who needs to be forced to play like a certain style. Like he is a genius where you just let him do his shit and he's got a complete game individually. I think he doesn't get tactical Counter-Strike, mate. If you ever notice over the years, go back in the day and look at interviews when he's talking about any of the Astralis lineups or some of those teams like that, and he's always like actually like a bit sort of salty about them. He almost has the vibe of almost like they're almost like tryhards or nerds because they're like watching demos and doing all these like smoke abuses. It's like, mate, that's Counter-Strike. You're not playing Quake, you know. Like this isn't a fucking like heavyweight boxing match, mate. This is like fucking fencing or something, or like judo or something. This is an art, dude. So all I've got to say is the reason I bring this all up is because that's why I think if you look historically, notice the names Nico wants as his IGL. It's all like washed mid-round callers. Or in terms of coach, when's he ever asked and said like, get me a good? No, he's getting like a fucking guy who's just a mate of his or something from his region. Like I hate this move, because what I hate about it goes like this. I know Nico individual frag out, therefore he'll never get the blame, but he is actually the one deciding other roles in the team potentially, or having undue influence. And even if he says, and this will always be the go back for someone like Nico, but I wasn't the one who had the only say. You're Nico, you dumb fuck. People listen to you differently than other guys. You have to understand your voice has a responsibility it carries when you speak. What you say ripples through the whole team and has way more impact. Even if the other 3 go, yeah, I agree, they're going because you said it, mate. They're not doing it because like, they're not going, oh, we better get this guy in because Nexus says he's walking otherwise. Yeah, he'd be on a fucking bus right now, wouldn't he? Who gives a fuck what that guy thinks? So, in my opinion, when people like Nico, I'll tie it into the Elise case earlier. If those guys get their choices, they get their coach, their friend comes in as the IGL, their other guy joins as a spot, then they have to carry the can when that team fails. Because what they essentially said there was, I'm going to play mini GM, and then when the team fails, go, but I'm fragging out. Like, you're just a dickhead of matchmaking again if you do that. Like, there has to be some responsibility for these superstar players, because at the moment, the orgs all cater to them still. There's only a couple of orgs, as far as I know. It was like Xstars, and then who would even fit that kind? Maybe Zonic. Maybe those two had like true control where they could sort of say to the side, like, I decide, you just give input. So I just hate that vibe. I don't like the vibe that like someone like Nico is going to bring in a guy, potentially, obviously this might not happen, and then they might just not be a top team, they might not win anything, and then every fan's just going to go, G2 did Nico dirty. What are you talking about, you fucking idiot? So I hate that whole move, because as I say, for me, coaching, we have to level this shit up. Coach and GM have to be like player. You don't just recruit any player and go, hope he could be my star player. You recruit the best players in the world because they're proven. Why are coach and GM just getting these whack-ass roles and people that you've like never heard of relative to the role?
You know who else probably has that same power and control is Blade for Na'Vi, because I find it super unlikely that Simple's sitting there like, I need Perfecto. Get me Perfecto, Blade. You know who? Bit. I saw him for the academy team. Bring him in. You know what I mean? Like Simple's not doing that, right? So that is their coaching staff operating that way. Which my other option for good was going to be Na'Vi Academy, but we don't need to go into all that detail. But
all right.
Either way, like Blade definitely has that level of control, and Xtaz definitely had that level of control, and they were 1 and 2 for a very long time with young academy players who normally people wouldn't have picked up, right? Like when you look at all of it, it's like sometimes these guys, the best guys, really do know what they're doing. It's shocking, I know. It's crazy to think about, but they really do know what they're doing if you give them the power to do it.
It's probably a safe bet, Davey, to say that maybe Simple didn't have roster control in Na'Vi during most of his time.
Right, exactly.
You just look at the fucking teams he was playing with, you know?
Yeah. That's what I mean. Like, there's no fucking... Even when this team got put together, you're sitting there like at first it's like, fucking Bit, Perfecto, Boomage, like, oh my god, poor Simple and Electronic, right? And then it just turns out that's like one of the greatest fucking talents ever.
I even thought the same thing, mate. Even though, listen, obviously it turned around and it's like the ZWoo or Stewie 2K moves where it was the 1 in a million that works. I thought the same thing, dude. When they announced they were getting that Bit guy and they initially were bringing him in 6-man style, like fucking Bobski style, and then they were like, oh, he's going to replace Flamey. I remember being like, so we lost the Flick guy we were going to get years ago, and now our replacement is a guy I've never heard of from your academy team. Like, that did sound whack. Look, it worked, but that was an enormous gamble to take, of course.
And even when on the maps he was just standing in for, like, he didn't do terribly, but because he was being compared to Flamey, it was like better than Flamey. Fuck, like, you know what I mean? It was one of those things where he was sort of given the benefit of the doubt just because he was performing better than Flamey was, and then eventually when he first came into the team like full time, there was when you watch those games. If you had predicted Bit is going to be a top 3 player in the world this year, top 5 player in the world this year, it would have been like, okay, yeah, cool, yeah, for sure, man, like for sure, right?
No, I'm with you, dude.
Definitely not. But
people
then all of a sudden,
erase history, you know, like they talk like the second he came in the lineup, he was doing this. It took him months to charge up.
A long time. Yeah. And it's funny, there was like the interview he did, or there was something I've heard the quote many times where he was like, Simple just told me to aim higher. And then it was like that, and now he's like one of the best, one of the best headshot percentage players in the world. Like, apparently there was some moment.
Dude, that low-key actually triggers me, though, because you remember a couple of years ago, that famous thing where that guy on Reddit was like, Astralis is aiming slightly lower than any other team. Maybe they know something secret about, like, headshot, but, like, shut up. Like, why do we even tolerate, like, waste of time discussions like that? I know.
And then Simple's whole secret is, dude, just aim at the head.
Yes.
And by the way, like, revolutionary fucking
that's almost as good. By the way, what makes that quote great is because as a player, he actually does seem to obviously believe, as you're saying, that like changed something about his game. Whereas the joke there is, like, realistically, that advice is nothing. Like, you get out of that whatever you put in. Like, maybe it's something else that he meant on this transfer. Because all I'll say
I don't even know how real it is. Like,
it doesn't sound real, does it?
Quoted to me. I've just heard it quoted to me so many times by people that I'm just like, oh, dude, maybe this is real. Maybe this happened. I don't fucking
That's
know.
like there's a story in League of Legends, right? There's a really good Korean jungle player who's called Klid, who played recently for Gen G. And he used to play for T1, right? He used to play for one of the best teams in the world, right? And this guy was an amazing Lee Sin player, which is the champion, if people don't know, in League of Legends, which is the one that like can fly in when it like lands a bobble thing on you. It goes in and then it can do the kick on you because it's a karate champion. And basically, it's a mega playmaking champion. And there's a story that this guy supposedly was mega low ranked in Korea and was like a nobody. He wasn't even a competitive player. And he just read a guide to Lee Sin online. It was like, when you land the Q, go in. And he was like, oh my God. And they just became like one of the best players in the world. Like, again, that's one of those stories where it's like, this is like some dog shit, like Marvel 1940s comic origin here. Like, what is this? Like, oh, I got bit by a spider. Like, no, you didn't. This is some garbage. You just had to do some bad writing to get into the story. So whatever, we're into the story on that one.
Although apparently is real. I just found a clip.
I could believe it.
Simple said in that at an event they called a tactical timeout, and he told Bit to aim higher, and then they ended up winning the game. And now Bit's like, I've just always aimed higher since. And
the joke is, he probably meant like metaphorically. He was like, Bit, you are, like you're a great player. You could be an excellent guy like me. Elevate your game. But then the mistranslation was like, he told me to aim higher. It's like, oh, I'm shooting him in the neck. My bad. That's the head. The head. Oh, fucking hell. You've done me there. Bloody hell.
He also,
I love the way Simple. By the way, that essentially also implies Simple is sort of, because let's be real, no one is truly reformed. You just become a little bit less of an arsehole. You figure out where you pick your spots, right? Well, you know those stories from back in the day where Simple was just doing stupid shit, like telling veteran players, like, that is not how you hold this spot. Then he would take their spot, do an ace or something, and then go, that is how you hold that spot. And then the guy's just looking at him like, what are you talking about? Like, but that's like the same shit. Then he's giving people advice. Aim higher, like you are missing. Like, we're not all fucking aimbots like you, are we? Like, I am trying to aim at his head. What are you talking about?
Turns out Bit was an aimbot, actually. Like,
I know, yeah.
And that was all he needed to become one. Yeah.
Exactly. At this point in time, it's actually a more plausible story that Bit is just some sort of an advanced Russian cyborg that Blade like programmed and made Ex Machina style. That's actually more plausible than he's just some nobody player that was on their academy squad and is now like the 4th best player in the world. Like, that actually is a more plausible story. Like, I could make a great movie out of that. Right, let's move on anyway. So we've got the ugly set now. So Davey, what was your ugly point?
Let me go check. I forget. Oh yeah, gorillas.
Yes.
Just because gorillas, like not like no. What else needs to be said? Just gorillas, like not the animal, of course, the Counter-Strike team.
No, Harambe, R.I.P.
Harambe, ugly fuck. Anyways, just like, dude, I just don't get. I just like, why? Just why? What even was this project? What even were they doing?
I like that headline though, where because why is esports such a clown world? You know when the headline goes, Flusher leaves Gorillas. Wasn't it his team? Wait a minute, isn't it literally? Didn't he make and decided him the tail? What does that even mean? At that point in time, why doesn't it just say Gorillas shutting down? Like, why is it like Flusher leaves his own team? Like, what is that? What is that?
Yeah,
I mean, they just wanted to. Yeah, go for it.
I just like don't even know what there is to even like fucking say about them. It's just like, it's one of those things where I forgot they existed until every now and then they would be in a qualifier. You'd be like, oh yeah, they lost again. Okay. Yeah. Well, and then wait 2 months. Oh, look! They're another qualifier. Oh, last place again. That sucks. There was just nothing. I just don't understand what. How long did it even last for? It felt like it lasted for almost a year.
It was from according to the results. It was from April this year.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
So it's a long time. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, what do you even, like, I don't know.
And they played, by the way, if you go on the Wikipedia, it's hilarious. They played loads of, like, qualifiers, but they just come in, like, fucking 17th in the qualifier. I know, exactly.
Yeah. Like, they were playing. They were grinding for all intents and purposes. For all you can tell, they were grinding. Like, their coach is IMBT. Like, they were grinding. They were doing things. They just didn't qualify for a single thing. And then whenever they were at even, like, some small tier 3 LAN, they would just go out at, like, 5th, 6th. I was just like, what a waste. Just unbelievable. Especially because there's pieces on that team that could have been pieces in other teams. And I just don't know what the point of that whole thing was. It was just funny to me. I couldn't think of a good ugly. And I just saw that team name and I started laughing. I was like, that's an ugly right there.
It was like every time they experienced a bad upset or a bad game loss, they just changed a player out too. I think they lost. So I remember they lost to Maus NXT 16-0, and I think I think JW just left, or was it JW? I think someone just left the team immediately after that, and I was like, okay, this problem's dead.
Yes.
And that they kept on playing more and more, and yeah, every time they just face. I think what did they lose recently? Some other really bad loss to a team they shouldn't lose to. They lost to Lin Vision. They lost to Lin Vision. They lost to it. They actually they're so racist. They actually just lost to an Asian team and said, "I gotta hang it up at this point." If I'm losing to Asian teams, it's done for me here. So that's
lost to Savage with Twist, Plessin, Grux, Dizon, and Chazi. It's another big one. They did beat D13, the Mongolian team, 16-13, so that's good.
That would have actually ended someone else's career. Right.
There's even an angle to this, which actually I would appropriately put in the ugly category, Davey, which is, if people don't know, Flusher is dead right in the center of that group of legendary pros that even if they are washed today, like even if I would be like on a desk and go, this guy's actually a bit washed, maybe win the odd clutch, but he's not going to put up numbers, he hasn't adapted in the modern day. The difference is the other players don't think that. Pro players still sort of hang on to the glory days for people like Flusher. He's actually in the category where I'm not exaggerating. If he hadn't wanted to make a whole team or be a package, I think it was even intimated. There were teams out there that were interested. I actually think he could have been in, by the way, a phase type team. Those exactly the sorts of team. A G2. These are the sorts of teams that might have recruited him because, again, as I'm saying, he's in that category like Fallen, etc., where you just get a million extra chances because the players that are recruiting you sort of naively think you're going to roll back the years and just be how good you were when they used to be impressed and thought you were unplayable. So even though he's not really, you can see his game's fucking degraded massively, so especially online, by the way. The joke is, and I know this sounds like a very simplistic point, but I think it's true. I genuinely think people like Flusher and JW had no chance in the online era because the joke is there's a million idiot kids doing exactly the dumbass shit that is actually genius when you do it online in a big game because no one would dare do it. But online, people are doing that all day long. It's like there was a round, if everyone remembers, at the Major that proved this. Do you remember at the Major there was a round where I'm trying to think who it was who did. I think off the top of my head it was a Gambit Furia game. There was a round where someone did something mad, like Furia tried to walk crawl 4 people into a smoke on I think Mirage in the connector or something and just stay there and just hope that no one knows anything and just walks by. That's the sort of dumbass shit that in a random online game you do, and if it works you're like, haha, lol, can you believe we did that? On LAN nobody even tries that. Fair play to Fury that they even tried it. On LAN, that's the thing you just throw out you don't even think that in your brain. That's not even in the equation. The difference is JW and Flusher would just do that stuff routinely because they had sort of they'd mastered sort of the fringes of the game and sort of the dead spots on the map where you don't expect someone to be into a push. So the problem I have is I don't think he would have been good, but I actually think Flusher this year could have probably been on a real team and could have still been sort of in the mix, would have been considered, the veteran player you keep around. So I think he's also sort of tanked his own career, mate. Who gives a fuck about these Gorillas players now? Remember all that hype when Sergey was going to the army of oh, fuck, we lost the talent. Imagine if he was an OG with no one even talks about him now. But I guarantee, dude, if I went to and polled a bunch of random players who don't watch low-level CS, I bet some of them don't even know he came back from the army. I bet they think he's in that team now. You know what I mean? They don't even know these players. Half those players have just been forgotten by history. It's sad. Yeah,
they absolutely tanked their stock. They tanked it with that one.
Unfortunately for Sergey, he was the opper for a lot of this lineup's history too. That's something that it just made no sense. It's just one of those things that he's the opper for Flush's team, and yeah, this year actually he has more op kills than any other gun. So. We saw how good he was with the rifle, and yet he just decides to try to do that. So I don't, it's just super unfortunate, super ugly.
These guys lost to Galaxy Racer, Young Ninjas, Nordavind, Izako Bors, LDLC, Sangal, 100 PG, Navi Jr., Kova. Jesus Christ, man. What is going on over there? Anyways, that's why they're my ugly, because that's pretty ugly as far as I'm concerned.
All I'll say is this: at least you actually did just say Gorillas as the ugly, because I also am such a piece of shit. I would actually have just made my ugly as Flusher, and then I would have said, I also don't like the way his careers go. Because you have to understand, I'm a bit different than you guys. I was basically born just to face this era of cancellation and survive it. I'm like some sort of I'm like Neo in that third Matrix movie that we've all deleted from our brains, where he's some sort of Christ Messiah figure, just going to the limits of spirituality and what's possible in the human race. But okay. In many ways, Flusher was the limits of what's possible with the human race. Some would say an evolutionary dead end, but I wouldn't say that at all. I don't
gotta get back on the phone with his programmer for keeping
exactly
the Matrix thing.
We're gonna see how good that fourth Matrix is, and it's gonna just be Flusher making Gorillas again. It's just that's the Gorillas actually, the fourth movie that's gonna come out. I have no hopes for that at all. Just saying.
And obviously, the joke would be that they did say in The Matrix that you can't break the rules, but you can bend them. And let's face it, that is Flush's entire career in a nutshell, right? I mean, I would say he broke them, but again, that's just a speculation, pure rank speculation from someone who's a veteran and would literally testify that in court. No, I wouldn't really, of course. We're not going to testify, is there? He got away with it. He got away with it. I just love the way, the story I'll never forget, by the way, because it's like the universe does have lazy script writers. You know the famous thing where the only way they caught Al Capone was his taxes? Do you remember that story last year where it was like Flusher didn't pay his taxes or something, like in Sweden, and that's like the only thing they caught him for. And it was like, God damn it, we had to get him in the end. Like, what is that shit? Like, why does that have to come like some clown world shout out of nowhere? Like, how is this real? How is it? It's like he cheated in every regard. He's like, cheated my taxes as well, fuck it. Like, what even is this? Why is esports so stupid? I don't know. Right, come on then, Maui. What is your ugly point?
Yeah, my ugly is that it's been 15 months since the match fixing ticket has been pulled for ESIC, and yet it's still
open if you go on the site.
It's still open on their register, by the way. It's still there. It's still there, and I kind of always try to make something that's a little bit more pertinent to the guest, and it's not.
So obviously ESEA using the same support ticket system they used to use a few years back. I'm guessing like, fucking hell, come on.
Yeah, I mean, not that obviously Davey match fix, but you kind of like knew some of the guys that did it, and we're seeing who they are. We're seeing that they are developing a career in a completely new game, that they're still going on.
Some of them are in literally some of the best Valorant teams in the world, right?
Yeah, they're actually like on top 5 teams in the world right now. So, and they're building incredibly huge brands off of it. And I just think that, you know, I want to just believe in karma a little bit, guys. You know, I just want to think that there's bad deeds that should be punished in some sense. And it feels like at this point, it's becoming a too big to fail type deal with some of these guys that are getting huge out there. And you know, it's just that even if those reports come out and they get banned from competitive play, they already have the backup plan ready for themselves that streaming is just going to work out too. So it's just there's no way that some of these people are leaving the ecosystem or anything like that. So I think that's kind of my ugly, is that it's been way too long. I don't at this point. Sure, the FBI got involved in that and makes it makes it take longer, but shouldn't the evidence there is available evidence. I am sure there is available evidence, and there is processing that available evidence. And if there is I don't know why, for some reason, there is some longer term deliberation over all of what's going on right now, because it just doesn't matter. It frankly just doesn't matter anymore. No one should care, and and it's kind of like getting disillusioned with any sort of hope that ESIC is a reputable or even useful organization. That's my ugly. It's just, this is completely pointless now. It's worthless.
Yeah, I don't have any inside information as far as the investigation goes, but I can only assume that there's obviously something larger than a bunch of kids were fixing Counter-Strike games, right? There's obviously some level of organized crime going on there for it to be taking this long, and for those institutions to get involved. There has to be a much deeper layer than any of us have any knowledge of. It feels super fucking frustrating, especially since they said we'll be releasing it in 2 weeks. Like, no, you won't. But like, you know, it's one of those things where I feel like it's out of E6's hands, but they overplayed their hand. Right? They overplayed their hand, and now it's out of their hands. And so that's why it feels so shit for us. As far as I guess that's my thoughts on the ESIC part of it. As far as the NA match fixers go, yeah, fuck them all. I reported the first thing to ESEA where it was so clearly a game was match fixed in like 2017 or 2018. Sent so this is something I've talked to Rich about. Sent this to Rich back then too. There was things where they were literally match fixing in a Discord server. They were organizing their match fixes in a Discord server. ESEA client has full kernel access to your PC. Are you fucking telling me that ESEA can't just be like, oh look, there it is, banned, gone, right? Of course they fucking could have. So then it comes into, why didn't they? What was going on there? Why was it all MDL games constantly being fucking match fixed? Conspiracies, theories, I don't fucking know. Either way, point is, it was bullshit. And I think the main thing that makes me upset about it, more so than anything else, is I don't think because an 18-year-old threw a Counter-Strike game for $5,000 in 2017 that they should be banned from the industry forever, right? I think that's ridiculous. But I also like what you're saying. it rubs you the wrong way when not only were they never punished, but they now are incredibly successful somewhere else, having never been punished for literally breaking the law. Right? I'm not talking about like moral things, like oh, what they did was morally wrong, or I don't agree with that morally. I'm talking entirely about you actually broke the law, broke the rules, and ruined the competitive integrity of this entire scene. And now, okay, I'll fuck off and go play some other game then, and let this like scene like die out now. That's fine. After I've ruined it, by the way. Like, just fuck that. Like that's the shit that bothers me. It's not that I have necessarily. I'm not like too bothered morally about them. I don't sit here thinking like, man, I really hate those guys for having done that.
Same.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't like have anything against them personally. Like, did I ever do it? No. Would I've ever done it? No. Like, I was never even involved in the fucking discussions. It was bullshit. Nobody even asked me to fix games after 2015. What the fuck, guys? Come on, this is bullshit. Like, nobody even asked me. It's fucked up. Then I
weren't even invited to the club.
I wasn't even invited to the club. They knew I wouldn't. They knew I wouldn't participate, so they didn't even ask me. So yeah. Anyways, that's the main thing that bothers me, is that they just were never punished for it, and that just doesn't sit right with me.
It just says for me just to like one quick point before Thorin. Like I just the point is that. It's just so God, where was I gonna go with this shit? It's just that it sets a bad precedent. It sets a bad precedent that people now just think that this is possible for the future, and there's no repercussions. And I'm certain, because actually, I mean, I just there's definitely more match fixing going on in the scene, like at the lower levels. There's absolutely more, and the thing is that nobody's afraid of it now. Like, why should they be afraid? Why would I be afraid of match fixing? Because I know nothing's gonna happen. Like that's just factual right now.
Right, here's the main problem I have with this case, is because obviously as a journalist, I can't just have like throwaway opinions or super mad hot takes on a topic like this, because I have to try and have like integrity and know that I'm not speaking ill of someone. I haven't looked at the case. Right, I don't know all the details of that particular case, because obviously it's the level of counseling I don't give a fuck about. I only know the things Richard's talked about and have been in some of the news stories. What I'll say is this: one of the things that I think is mega misunderstood up to this day about the iBuyPower match fix, which obviously the match fix itself, I think, was in something like August 2014, and then they were banned in, I think it was like February 2015 from the top of my head. It was like a month later. And basically, what people still forget to this day is Richard already had something mad, like proof that the bets had been like mega one-sided, and like, you know, like all the money goes in on the team that you'd never expect to win. He already had something like intimations, like someone had told him sort of like second hand, this is what happened and who did it and what they did, etc. Basically, he had loads of things.
He had many chat logs from people involved.
If you were just looking at this as in like, you know, gun to your head and we're going to reveal the answer, and if you're wrong, you die, you would say they match fixed the game. But the problem is, it wasn't literally until he was able to send the actual physical phone from D-Born's girlfriend. D-Born was someone connected to the team who also participated and facilitated the match fixing. It wasn't until he literally sent a real phone, and the reason he had to physically get the phone and film it all was to show that he didn't fake these SMSs, etc., or WhatsApp messages or whatever it was, showing that she was telling this like testimony that he did all this stuff when she was his spurned ex. Now, the reason why I bring this up is because it shows that for Valve themselves, you had to essentially have a ironclad. You had to have a totally airtight case that proved like these guys definitely cheated. Here's from A to Z how they cheated. Here's exactly how, who they dealt with, the dates. You had to have everything, otherwise Valve wouldn't do anything. Now, the reason I bring that up is because I think actually for Valve, they were more on the edge of like, you know, if this was a lawsuit or some sort of a court case, would this actually get done? Now, if people don't know, I'm about to potentially speak out my arse, because I'm obviously not a lawyer and I don't know much about the court, right? But I'll tell you a little something I have read over the years that to my mind made sense. So as far as I know, this is correct. This is why if you ever go and have a court case with someone, there's a very different scenario between whether it's like a fucking whatever you call it, like judicial court, or I can't remember what the term is, like a legal court, or the other one's like the civil case, if you know the difference.
Yeah, so one's criminal and one's civil.
Yes, there you go, criminal and civil, right? And one of the key differences, as far as I know, goes like this. In the criminal case, because if you're found guilty for certain things, you're going to go to prison. I mean, in America, you could potentially have the death penalty. Because it's so serious what the potential consequences are, they actually instruct the jury, just like they do in the UK, as far as I know. They tell you, essentially, if you're in the jury, like I'm giving you like a gist of it here, obviously not literally the words. They sort of tell you, like, look, it's not about whether the guy, like, is innocent or not. You can't know if he's innocent. All you have to do is tell me, have they proven to you he is guilty? If they haven't proven he's guilty, you say not guilty. Because people always get that wrong. They always say he was found innocent. There's no innocent verdict, you idiots. They're not the fucking... They can't access all time and space. All they can tell you is you're not guilty. It's just that not guilty effectively may as well be the same thing in terms of how they deal with you, right? But the reason I bring this up is because, as far as I know, the reason why in a civil case, someone who even loses the criminal case sometimes wins is they use a different standard of evidence. It's called, like, preponderance. Basically, the premise goes the other way in a civil case. What they say essentially is, if you think more than likely they did do it, then you can find them guilty. And as a result, oftentimes I think in the civil case, you just pay money, essentially. You just pay sort of damages for whatever happened. So the reason I bring this case up is, as far as I can tell, most of the bodies, including ESIC, are operating more like a criminal court. And they're like, unless you can literally prove, nailed down completely, these guys 100% did the crime, I'm not going to do anything to them. Like, I won't, maybe I'll do something light. Whereas my problem is this. Currently, like, let's be real, these are actual crimes you're committing, by the way. You could actually go to a real court, and by the way, in theory, the police could take you there. You couldn't have to do anything in esports. So I think we need to move away from that standard. And I'm just going to say this now. I actually think this should be more in the vibe of a civil case, or how they used to do it back in the day if you cheated on something like ESEA. If people don't know, I was there when ESEA as a POG service was founded, because it literally was my idea. And I can tell you what we used to do with the admins was, we would literally just get an admin to watch a demo of the player that was being accused of cheating, and if there was any qualms, by the way, like he's on the fence, I'm not exaggerating, we would just take the demo to like K-Sharp or some like legendary pro player and go like, what do you think? Do you actually think this guy's cheating? Could he have done that, you know? And essentially, if all the people we took it to were like, I'm almost certain that's like hacking, like, you know, it looked like he had a wall hack there or aimbots. If they said it, even though we didn't actually have evidence, like we're not using an anti-cheat that caught you, we would actually ban you, because what we would say was essentially like, look, more than likely you did cheat. Like, I can't catch you, but if I allow everyone who looks like they're cheating, I can't catch to play in the scene, it's going to ruin our scene. I think genuinely that's what we need to do to fix this scenario. If we've got literally like loads of chat logs of you saying you fixed games, you did this, and then laughing about it and joking about it and voice chats. Listen, even though I can't prove you actually did go in and throw this game, I can't prove that that's why you lost. You know what? I'm just going to go ahead and say I hate that as a look. And I think some TOs, tournament organisers, should just say you're not allowed to play my tournament anymore. If people don't know, this wouldn't even be a precedent. Back in the day, especially in Europe, there were famous cases where, like, they were like, I mean, I remember one of them was like that Killerfish mix, but there was like German players who were infamous for either cheating or match fixing online and like throwing games intentionally. And basically, TOs and certain betting companies just started saying, like, you either A, can't play in the tournament, or B, can't be listed as a bet on our site. That's just our approach we're going to take. That's something you can do. A TO can do that tomorrow. ESL tomorrow can say, look, we're just not going to accept these players ever again into MDL. You can never play an MDL because of, you know, you've caused too much problems. And you could even just go on a behavioural angle, or, you know, you brought disrepute to the league with your actions. Like, you don't have to make it that you catch them for the match fixing. But the point we're sort of all trying to get to here is, at the moment, it looks like it's never going to be resolved. And worse than that, it looks like there's going to be no consequence whatsoever. It's not even going to be something you carry as, like, you know, a listing. Like Braceway, they're not even going to have what Richard has, where when Richard defended himself against someone trying to physically intimidate him, Richard forever has to have on every Wikipedia, like, he potentially assaulted someone at a LAN. So they don't even get that. And these guys might have actually thrown fucking games. And the worst ones, the ones I'm obviously referring to, the fuckers where you have them on, like, literal recordings of them, like, laughing about, like, haha, I'm going to throw this game now. Like, my idea is, like, even though I can't prove that, like, listen, cocksucker, unless this is some Andy Kaufman level troll, you just don't get to play my league if you do that. Like, I don't fuck with that vibe. How would I ever want you competing? So I do think on sort of like an actual, like, personal basis, we could sort of half solve the problem. Because I personally, I'm sorry, I don't think it'll ever be solved long term. And I've said this before, so I won't go on a separate rant. I did it all on that By the Numbers one ages back, if people remember. I also personally have, like, a real bad vibe from ESIC now. They just seem like a bunch of fucking... my whole thing was like, if you ever see the Ian Smith guy, he just seems like the most milquetoast guy ever. This is the guy, the cop, just going like, oh, what happened then? Like, he's not the guy who's, like, you know, pounding down the doors like Dirty Harry with fucking a 6-shooter revolver. He's like, I'm going to get the criminal and all. This is the guy who's just like, oh, well, guess we just couldn't get him. Damn it. Oh, back to the HQ, guys. He has that vibe about him, doesn't he? Like, he doesn't have, like, a Punisher vibe. He has a more vibe like, oh, well, they got away with it, guys. Technicality. And it's like the bad guys just fucking get away every time, it feels like.
I also kind of sympathize with that approach from them, though, because they're a new, governing body coming into esports that everybody already was doubting at the beginning. So if they have any major fuck ups early on, that they're
for sure.
toast, right? So I can see why they're taking that approach, even though from our perspective, I agree with you. We don't actually need ESIC to fucking ban some of these people where the evidence is, okay, so here's 3 games in a row where the odds swung completely 2 minutes before the game, and then this team was winning 12-0 in the game, and then all of a sudden one of their players lagged out and they lost 16-12. Oh, and the bet was a 28.5. Like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, come on, dude. Come on. Like, this is the most. And then, and by the way, we also happen to have chat logs of them talking about it before the game. So it's like, dude, like, we don't need to have the actual betting slips to ban them, right? That's like, we don't need the betting slips to ban them. I think that's totally fair.
What do you think, Maui?
I mean, I think you guys covered a lot there, and that I just would wish that there was some way. I think the overall approach of what you're saying, Thorin, and Davey too, just the idea that you don't need as concrete of evidence as, because when you go to a trial, I mean, okay, I'm not gonna try to pretend I know legal. I have expertise or anything, but you try to defend your case, or at least try to prosecute someone for something they did, and it's always incomplete evidence for everything. And so that's the main issue with this, is that because there's incomplete evidence, then they're just not going to pull any triggers ever. They're never going to do anything. And if that's what it is, then I mean, why would I not just go on just fucking DJ?
Oh mate, it's actually worse. Here's why it's worse as well. We're mainly talking about people that slipped up. They did stuff like got caught on recording, or they're so old school, like Davey said, they were using Discord. In the modern day, with crypto and with other applications you could use, in theory, we're going to get even worse evidence in some of them, like really high-level match-fixing ones. Like, we're never going to get close to even this level of evidentiary standard, I don't think so. I'm just saying, like, by the way, it's not even the approach I personally would take. Like, my approach, unfortunately, I'm a very extreme person. I would just have a set thing of, like, unless you can prove it, you can't prove it. Tough shit, move on. But I'm talking about for everyone else. I know the reason people are frustrated is because, like, they feel on a social level, like, we sort of know these are the bad guys. Can't we at least do something to them? Yeah, maybe we can't kick them out fully for match fixing. Surely we can give them some punishment, or sort of show up a little bit, because we do at least at a minimum know they are douchebags. That's the minimum we know.
And there's fucking games in NA Premier where one player on a team is match fixing, their team loses the game, and then that team gets dropped by their org. So that guy makes money. His 4 team that happened. That happened twice that I know of. Yeah. So it's just like, dude, like, come on. And that guy's not banned still. That guy's still not fucking banned. And it's just like, you cost 4 of your teammates their jobs, and this is fucking ESEA Premier. Winning that game could be the difference between making playoffs or not making playoffs. If you make playoffs and you're not match fixing, maybe you win one of the games in your BO3. Like, there's like a whole different fucking you are literally ruining players' careers by doing it. Ruining players' careers and ruining the integrity of the league. And that's and the fact that so many of them went entirely unpunished, and the ones who did get punished, it's like fucking 4 months or 6 months or something, and then now they're just like back playing in high levels of Premier and FPL again, and it's just like, dude, this is a fucking joke. This is a fucking joke, honestly.
Right, we'll do the last one now, which was my ugly point. And my ugly point is this. It's a bit vague, so there's plenty of angles you could go with on this one. It's basically CSGO pros who were actually good at CSGO. It wasn't like the CLG players where they just had no offers left and they didn't want to play at tier 1 million. So they went to Valorant, understandably, and tried to join actual pro teams and get a job and be a personality or be a coach, whatever. I get why those guys did it. More power to them. Do whatever you need to. It's the players. It's the Nitros, Ethan. You put them all on the list if you want, Nivera, a bunch of players where they went to Valorant and they definitely could have kept playing CSGO. Some of them even were in CSGO in top teams, but essentially they chose, I'm going to go to Valorant. And the reason I picked this as ugly is because just like Nitro, and just like you've seen what happened to people like Steel, etc. in Valorant, I predicted this ages ago, you're going to see a really awkward solo comeback where they're going to crawl back to CSGO. And you're going to see this. The joke is this. Everyone else is going the other way. Watch out, Simple might just go and play fucking Valorant. First of all, dickhead, he wouldn't last a minute in Valorant. He has literally cheated in CSGO and said some of the most heinous things ever on a mic and in a camera. He is not fit for a Riot game. You haven't thought that one through at all. But more importantly, he obviously isn't going to Valorant, is he? He's in CSGO. But my angle is this. I'm expecting more will come back. I actually think, like, any of them that are out there, look, there's certain ones, again, that I almost put in the other category. Like, if you also never really made it, like, if you're like Som and Tens, CSGO maybe for you wasn't even something you really had as a dream. Maybe you only briefly sort of tested that world and you never got enough of a taste. You really have to come back. Because what I get the vibe of is, one, and I've said this many times, people are in denial. You ask any of these players, I'd love to see what Maui and Davey are going to say because they know these people. You ask any of the people I'm talking about, they'll even tell you privately, like, nah, it's not really that good a game, actually. Like, I hope they'd improve it over time. Like, the map's never really got good. Like, there's literally players I play in this game I know sucked in CSGO, but they can sort of, like, flash themselves into spots and do shit with the ultimates and stuff. Like, dude, they have so many complaints. And then also, you see all these problems they're having at every fucking LAN they try to organise. And because they literally did Babby's first MOBA as their entire claim to fame at Riot Games, they also have the whole thing where it's like, oh, what do you mean? We're playing online, guys. Why is that not like LAN? Like, oh, fucking, do we have to explain this to you? Like, it's supposed to be a game you play on 5 ping, you moron. I can't be on 30 and him on 10. Like, this isn't League of Legends. This isn't fucking children's games, is it? It's actually sports. So the problem is basically, I think the whole grass is greener thing, that is going to turn so badly in the next year. And you are not only going to see some more names come back, but the reason I picked it as ugly is because, one, ultimately, they'll look back and go, why? What did I actually leave for? Like, what was I hoping Valorant would be? And also, when they come back, here's the really bad news. We're all going to assume they're all going to come back and be awesome. You never know that. I tell you what, it is so dangerous to ever take an extended break from Counter-Strike, to ever retire from Counter-Strike. If you ever want to do a comeback, dude, most comebacks don't work. They don't ever get back to that level again. So you might all think like, oh, if Ethan came back tomorrow, it'd be a bit... I don't fucking know that, mate. I can't tell you that. I can't tell you that as a guarantee. You can't know. I want to know where you guys are at on this one.
You go first, Alex. I know you follow Valorant.
There were a lot of players on top teams. I would say I knew at least 1 to 2 players on every top 7 team in the NA Valorant space that at the beginning of the game was like, yeah, this game is worse, but I'm here for the bag and to try it out, But like, there was plenty of complaints. I just had a lengthy discussion with Floppy about all the flaws of Valorant as a game. So I know people were not in on it, and yeah, there's a grass is greener thing, and there's a just chasing the bag, seeing if you can create a career out of it. It obviously worked for certain people like Wardell. He's got a huge following now, like one of the biggest streamers in the space, and it's a little bit. I think I'm a little bit bitter about it, because it would have been nice to see him on Liquid as that offer that they needed. But in terms of his career, good for him, and because I think he enjoys it. He's probably one of the few that do. But with regards to the people that probably want to come back, which is happening more and more now, yeah, there's no way to be certain that you still have a place here, or just that the heights that you actually probably reach in Valorant. So I'll just pick one player. I'll say like Moose, for example. Like, Moose was a player that didn't really like switching to Valorant. He made it pretty clear on Twitter, and so I shouldn't be blowing anybody's mind. Okay. And he's been on Luminosity for a while, and for a while they were looking like a top 5 team in North America, but that's fallen by the wayside. They're not looking that strong anymore. I'm not even 100% sure he's still on the team, but he was looking like one of the best rifle prospects in North America. I think Davey could attest to this, that people really wanted Moose on a better team for a while.
In CSGO?
Yeah, in CSGO.
Yeah. He's super likable personality as well. Just very chill. He's not going to cause any problems on a team ever. Right. He's very chill. He'll do what you ask. Like, yeah, he was good. He was a smart player. He
was reading to me like the next Breeze, because he was just super.
I wouldn't go that far, but he was good.
Like, it was like the trajectory for me was similar. It wasn't that he obviously never reached those heights, but it's just one of those things where now, if he wants to make a transition back, not that I'm saying he's going to be the one, but anybody in his kind of position, not everybody can pull off the Floppy. Like, Floppy's come back and he actually looks really freaking good, but some people are coming back and they're just kind of not looking too hot in MDL now.
Not everybody gets to be thrown back straight into their CS comfort zone either, though, right?
That's true. Yeah.
Like, Floppy just gets to go back and play with all of his friends who he's played with the whole time in the exact role that he wants.
Same for Nitro.
Right. Yeah, like it's the same with Nitro, exactly. Not everybody's going to get that opportunity when you come back. So that's one aspect of it for sure.
No, you could keep going. I mean, that's part of my piece.
Yeah, so I think that like the main thing for CS players that switched over, like you were saying, was either old guys who just wanted to make their money. There's like, okay, I'm done in CS. I'm pretty washed now. Let's go do something else. I have a big brand, big name. I can go make some money over there. It's people who were either tired of, they didn't want to have to do the CS online COVID era thing. Because for Valorant, if you wanted to just stay at home and play professional Valorant for months, you could do that in NA. You couldn't do that for CSGO, right? Yes. So that's one aspect of it. People who were like homebodies buddies or who had girlfriends that lived in North America. Or, you know, for example, if for Nitro's case, again, he's a really good friend of mine. I didn't ask him any of these questions because honestly, I don't want the info because I don't want to accidentally say it. But I could assume that the fact that he was starting a young family and his wife was going to be at home in Louisiana. Exactly. I'm assuming those things definitely played a role in the original decision making for, do I want to be living in Europe 6 months a year when I'm just having a baby right now? Probably fucking not, right? Like probably not. Again, I haven't talked to him about it. I don't know, but probably not. I'm sure that was a factor. So there's things like that. And then I think the CSGO players that are coming back, if you notice, it's all the players who don't really vibe with that culture. Like, you know, obviously like Nitro coming back, Floppy coming back. The CSGO players who switched over and are staying there are the like, you know, your Tens, your Psalm, Ethan, sort of like the best way, especially with some the weeby guys, you know, they're like, oh man, I'm really into like all this cool shit. Like, oh wow, dude, there's this video game and there's this thing flying over here. Wow, this is so sick. It's just like that anime that I watch. Like, those are the guys who are staying in Valorant. The people who are slowly coming back out are the people who aren't in that culture at all. So I think that is more like the sort of, I guess, like the real the traditional sports guys, the competitors, the guys who, you know, they don't like the fact that they're not allowed to talk shit to the other team out of LAN, you know, like stuff like that. Those are the guys who are coming back, I think. And I think that is very much, there is just a huge cultural difference between the player bases of Valorant and CSGO. And I think that a lot of those guys are coming back, not only for that reason, but also when they went over, they were probably tired of the COVID period. You know, they were tired of online CS. You know, there was lots of external factors. And I think now that those external factors that may have just nudged their decision making are slowly going away, is why we're seeing them coming back slowly.
I bet a load of those guys, especially because in Valorant they haven't yet powered up to have a LAN that was anything comparable to like the big LANs in CSGO. I bet some of those guys just watched the major and were like, fuck.
Yep.
Fuck. Yep, I could be on one of those teams.
Dude, think about it. Okay, so Twists, he went to FaZe, right? He has a girlfriend who lives in Europe, moved in with his girlfriend in Europe, so he went to go play for FaZe. If his girlfriend lived in North America, I could almost fucking bet you he's on a Valorant team instead of on FaZe. So like that, and again, I'm obviously speculating, but I think that's super likely. I think that's super likely that a guy like that would have been prime to go play at some top Valorant team if he had a girlfriend who lived in North America, or if he didn't have a girlfriend in Europe even, and he just wanted to be at home, I think he would have been playing Valorant instead. But because not only was he one of the best Counter-Strike players in the world, which means European teams wanted him, also the extra incentive of I get to go move in with my girlfriend in Europe, and I get to play on one of the best teams in the world, and I get to keep playing Counter. Like, there was none of those small little factors to edge him towards Valorant. Everything was pushing him into CSGO. So I think that there's other examples like that, obviously, but I think that was the main reason you saw some people leave, and it's going to be the main reason why you see people come back.
I'm actually with you on that angle as well, where you tried to describe it as like the vibe, because it definitely does obviously have a total distant aesthetic in Valorant, and they've even implied, if you know, like obviously the people who made the game at the top level originally with the League of Legends people, even though they've got CSGO specific people in to help them, etc. Like, there is more of a vibe where I think they're just going to increase all of that sort of like weep type shit even more. It's going to be more crazy ults and characters. Things are going to be open. So if you're a CSGO fan or player, it's also just a very different vibe. You're not going to be in that static CS environment where it's like, right, it's like a sport. It's like playing some like fucking baseball. Like, the sport itself's not going to change radically. It's about you. You work on your game and you try and master an element of it. Those games really are more about like what's cool and what are people liking, and whoa, isn't this sick what I just did? Like, I can't lie, every time I watch Valorant, which I occasionally do, like I do, it makes me the ultimate esports boomer, because anytime I see that fucking Jet agent do that ult where it throws, it's one that throws the blades that people don't know, I just want to immediately close it down, because I'm like, look, even if like that was like good accuracy, this is just whack. Like, what the fuck is this shit? Like, I know it's hating, but it makes me just want to close the stream down immediately, you know.
I can't watch it. I've tried. I can't watch it. I've talked to Alex about this before. I try so hard. I can't fucking do it. And I'm only like 25. Like, I'm not even a fucking boomer or anything. I know in CS terms I am, but I'm not even a fucking boomer or anything. And I know for sure, I know from talking to some of them, there is like players who were CSGO players who went to Valorant. And when Riot does those animation edits that are just like anime of Jet like jumping and flying and like throwing her knives and shit, like, what the fuck is this? Like, what the fuck am I doing right now? Gee, thank God they're paying me $15,000 a month, because I can't fucking deal with this shit. Like,
dude, I think the worst ult for people that watch out there is the Viper ult. That shit is the just trashiest ability in terms of viewability out there.
Which one is that one?
Viper is the one that the smoke screen girl with like the green balls and shit.
The green wall. wall of.
So yeah, when she
Yeah.
ults, it's a giant just green. It's just shit. It looks like shit too. That's the worst part about it is that it's supposed to like the way it's programmed. You can tell it has to reach a certain amount of like distant units or whatever.
Yes.
So it has these like weird fucking walls all the time that it just randomly builds for itself, and it's seriously like the most unwatchable thing because even the observers can't capture the action. There was a round recently. I think it was versus.
And they have really good observers, by the way. Really good.
Oh yeah. Oh, it's like Prius, Sapphire, whoever. Yeah, all the best ones. Like Prius and I think it was Sapphire. Probably was. I'm not gonna actually. You know what? I'm just not gonna throw anyone under the bus because it's the ult that sucks ass. Okay, so basically,
just throw Prius under the bus. He's dog shit.
So Prius, so DJ was observing this one, and basically it was Cloud9 versus I forgot who they're playing in the quarterfinals, and it's like one of the most important rounds of the entire game, and literally the Viper ult goes up, and they missed 5 frags consecutively, and I just don't even know because the wall just showed nothing. Nothing was shown. They just showed the wrong person for like 3 seconds, and that's the whole round was over. And I was like, this is just like this. I can't watch this. And I was watching with friends too. I was even like, I was trying to get excited for it. You know, they were interested, like some of my more normie friends and stuff. And I was like, what the fuck did we just see? Like nothing. We saw nothing, guys. Like we don't even. And we're just like, woo. Fucking the team beat them with the kill feed. The kill feed showed us, guys. That was it.
Also, I've got to say,
I brought up at the beginning too is that like Overwatch ran into the same problem. Overwatch ran into the same fucking problem. When you have all these abilities and so many fucking things going on, it's kind of like in League of Legends. You can thankfully most team fights all happen in one spot, so you can just look at the one spot. Yeah. But you still, for people who don't watch, have no fucking clue what's going on though. Like if you don't follow League of Legends, dude, even for someone who follows League of Legends, there's team fights where I watch, and until I see the slow mo and watch and hear the analyst break it down, I'm like, oh, that's why. So he's
just watching health bars, basically. Yeah, exactly.
That's what I'm like. Oh, okay. And Valorant and Overwatch run into the same fucking problem where the casual viewers watch it and think, oh, this looks fun, this looks cool, but then exactly what you just talked about, they're like, wait, but like what just happened though? Wait, what just happened? Like, I don't even actually know what just fucking happened. Like I have friends who started watching Counter-Strike, never played it. Valorant came out. We're like, oh, this is fun. I'm going to play this new FPS game because it's easier. Play Valorant. Tried to watch Valorant, and we're like, can't watch Valorant. Don't know what's going on. And that is a problem that they're going to run into eventually, as numbers are going to slowly keep going down, and they're going to run into that problem. And
here's the thing, though. In a few years, I could believe maybe it'll be ready for me. Like, if in a few years it really is just like all the big names are like, it's like either like people they grew like tens, etc., or like just players that come. The dream, obviously, with people who only played Valorant and become the best player, they become their version of Nico, etc. My problem as well is I would just tune into like those early lands, and it would be like, and here we have it, Boaster versus Shazam, who is the best in the world? And I was like, you know what? Close the stream down. It's not for me. You know what? Not for me, guys. This is a young man's game. Like, I'm out. I can't be doing that. Because the odds that these are all the best players. Come on, man. I've seen these guys and see. But first of all, who resurrected Shazam? And then secondly, Boaster. You can go look this up. Boaster was at a CSGO major. You're probably all thinking, really? Was it? Yeah, he was working in content at Faceit, at the Faceit London major. You can go look it up. And he was also in like literally a tier 1 million fucking team from the UK. I think it was, I don't even know which one it was. He was in one of those nobody UK teams in CSGO. The idea, like, it's like, and now he leads one of the best teams in the world. Fuck you. That's what I say. Fuck you. Here's the thing, for all I know, maybe he's an awesome guy. Maybe he's turned it all around. I don't give a fuck, mate. Fuck you. That's all I have to
I didn't even know who he was until you just brought up his name right now. So.
Exactly.
But I also don't follow Valorant at all. I just can't. I
no, it will to him.
I got offers from 2 orgs at the beginning of Valorant, like when it was first launching, before any of the VCS stuff, when it was first launching. Orgs came to me, David, do you want to build a Valorant team? I'm like, no, I don't like the game. I don't play it, and I don't want to do it. They're like, we're going to pay you X. I'm like, I don't want to. They're like, we don't care. We don't care. Just do it. And I was like, no, I don't like the game. I don't want to play it. And I will be a bad investment for you. And they're like, we just need CSGO names. That was literally
but the best part of that equation is the idea that you go, look, I just fundamentally don't like the game, and they go, we'll double the offer. Like, what are you talking about?
It wasn't quite double the offer.
No, but the idea that that's even like the thought process. Surely it's like, oh, well, he doesn't like the game. Well, better move on and get someone else. It's like, what if we pay you more money, though? Everything's about money, right?
That's how it was
money, you little
back
pig.
then.
Come on, little pig.
That's how
much money
back
you need?
then, dude. That's how it was. I was like, no, I just retired from CS. I don't want to compete anymore, and I hate this game. Like, I don't want to.
Fair enough.
Yeah, and they were just like, and it happened to two for only one org went that hard with it, but I got offers from 2, not quite 3, but 2 orgs for sure that were like, build this team for us. I was like, I don't want to, and they were like, please, please make a Valorant team. It's like, dude, no, this is stupid.
This video was kindly supported by Iskander, Lager15, Matt Pugnatio Rajcula, Travis Goff, Zack Schmidt, Adam Ochs, Animosity, Butt Pounder 420, Chronic Alcoholism, Hades, Jdubs, Jensen Goh, Joseph Ginsburg, Kovacevicd, Tobias Bernasconi, Zoomba, Zyrathenia, and of course, a special thanks goes out to Jerky's Minion and DZL. Do you want to suggest a topic or a guest for my content? You want to ask me a question? Maybe you want to know who the guests are for my upcoming content, or you'd like to take part in one of those long donated discussions. Well, put your money where your mouth is at the Patreon link in the description box below and join the Skrilluminati today.